All right, you and I are about to watch a supposed genius fail miserably. When Lewin Ardell entered the Magic Academy, everyone expected greatness. But he had zero magical talent, and the class bullies immediately targeted his poor family background. But words eventually turned to physical violence. What these arrogant jerks didn't realize, our main character never let anyone insult his family and get away with it. The second the bully crossed that line, Lewin landed a savage punch right to his jaw, launching him backward. He coolly declared that while magic was tough, his fists still worked perfectly. Shocked and humiliated, the blonde kid begged his stronger buddy for backup. But as that heavy hitter swung, Lewin easily slipped the blow and buried a brutal counterpunch deep into his gut. Suddenly, the target of their bullying was the only one left standing. But the sore loser blonde kid decided to play dirty, unleashing a lethal bolt of combat magic directly at our hero. Their professor rushed in just in time to watch a student get vaporized. Yet, instead of ashes, Lewin was completely fine, drifting off into a mysterious, vivid dream. A colossal beast appeared, claiming the boy was the mortal reincarnation of the world-devouring entity, Draka. When Lewin finally opened his eyes, he was greeted by an incredibly gorgeous woman. Naturally, he thought he'd died and gone straight to heaven, but she quickly set him straight. She was Helen, an elite healer in the high-class recovery ward, while Lewin could only recall his strange nightmare. Helen explained he'd been out cold for an entire day. But the absolute shocker was his physical condition. Despite the direct magical blast, his body didn't have a single scratch. Getting blasted by lethal lightning should have killed him, and even Lewin had no clue how he survived. Just then, their instructor entered the room, looking for some real answers. The teacher announced both bullies had been expelled for unauthorized combat magic and relentless harassment. Being honest, Lewin owned up to his part, admitting he threw some heavy hands himself. As punishment, he received 1 month of campus community service. But Professor Heigl had a hidden agenda. He wanted to know if Lewin was hiding a legendary artifact. Now pay attention here, our main character genuinely had no clue what this artifact was. But the professor wasn't buying it, since he saw a mysterious red energy shield him during the blast. Only a mythical treasure could generate that kind of defensive power. Realizing the boy was clueless, Heigl dropped the subject, leaving Lewin to ponder the bizarre words of the dragon. The beast had mentioned something called a status window. The moment Lewin whispered those words, a glowing blue screen materialized right before him just as Helen walked back in. Startled, he blurted out if she could see the glowing screen. She raised an eyebrow, warning him that having hallucinations was a serious medical issue. Thinking fast, Lewin laughed it off as a silly joke. Satisfied with his recovery, she discharged him, and that very night, our hero slipped away to the academy training grounds. Under the night sky, the magical system screen flickered back to life. This time, it displayed a basic, repeatable quest with straightforward physical requirements. Rolling up his sleeves, he wondered how physical workouts could help a magic user. Brushing his doubts aside, Lewin took a deep breath and threw his first test punch into the empty air. Grinning as the quest tracker ticked upward, he kept going. But when he threw his next strike, his form slipped, throwing off the rhythm. He quickly realized the system demanded absolute perfection for each rep. Covered in sweat under the pale moonlight, he kept pushing through the exhaustion. After what felt like hours, Lewin finally completed the grueling task, a tired grin on his face. As he wiped away the sweat, a notification chimed to announce his reward. Before he could even read the screen, a strange sensation washed over him. Staring at his arm, he felt a sudden surge of raw energy coursing through his veins. He didn't know how it worked, but one thing was absolutely certain: he had gotten stronger. Driven by curiosity, he decided to test his newfound power immediately. You and I can clearly see the massive upgrade when he throws his next punch. Speed, power, and air resistance, everything had skyrocketed. Grinning, he couldn't wait to see what other skills he'd unlocked. He summoned the screen to check the details, revealing his first unlocked skill, Circle of Strength. Confused at first, the realization quickly hit him. While standard mages form mana circles around their hearts for control, Lewin was born with 4 extra circles, normally an incredible advantage. However, his body's unique flaw had made them completely useless. But now, those broken mana circles were gone, replaced by a strange, fast-spinning vortex that felt entirely different. This completely unique energy left him speechless. But anxiety quickly set in as he wondered what this meant for him. Fear crept in that his dream of becoming a mage was truly dead. Shaking off the panic, he decided to test his magic by casting the one spell he always failed, a simple fireball. He was stunned by how fast the spell formed and the sheer, raw force behind it. Right there in the dark yard, Lewin finally realized the true potential of his cheat. Normally, casting a spell took at least 10 whole seconds of intense focus. Yet, he had bypassed the casting time completely, summoning a fireball in an instant. Dispersing the flame, Lewin clenched his fist, still overwhelmed by this godlike power. That is when another notification popped up, revealing a second skill named Madness Mage. It allowed him to channel magic directly through his own limbs, bypassing his broken mana circles. Astonished, he wondered who could have ever created such a wild technique. But he had no time to waste staring. A new quest immediately flashed on screen, ordering him to test his magic on a physical dummy. Stealing his resolve, Lewin locked his eyes onto a nearby training dummy. He lunged forward, throwing a heavy punch while simultaneously coating his fist in a raging fireball. A wide grin spread across his face as the dummy exploded. With the quest cleared, another reward arrived, and he collapsed onto the grass, completely exhausted. Staring at the night sky, his mind raced with questions rather than relief. Now that he could cast magic, he wondered who this dragon, Draka, actually was. But sleep caught up to him fast. The next morning, he woke to the panicked shouting of his classmates, who were terrified to find him unconscious in the dirt. Shrugging it off, Lewin stood up calmly. One classmate even asked if he'd spent the night drinking himself to sleep. Lewin simply muttered that he passed out from pure fatigue and walked away, leaving them totally unsettled. This wasn't the weak kid they knew. Then, one of them spotted something strange nearby. One of the training dummies was completely turned to ash. Heading back to his dorm, Lewin bumped into his roommate Jason, who was busy brushing his teeth. Jason teased him, asking if he'd snuck out for a wild night since Lewin almost never left campus. Under the humor, though, he was genuinely curious. Ignoring the jokes about him finding a girl, Lewin tossed his jacket at Jason and hopped into the shower, letting the warm water wash away the grueling fatigue. Resting up, Lewin saw a new quest. The goal had doubled, but the reward stayed the same. Trust me, you and I need to watch how strong he gets. Let's dive into a story where making it as a mage takes some absolute grind. Our main character spent a month tackling daily quests, sinking into the tub each night just to survive the pain. He quickly realized the system was brutal, missed just one day, and all his progress resets to zero. That meant training every single day without fail, even if he had to skip leg day to survive the grueling routine. Thankfully, the system capped his daily training at 3,000 reps. Correcting his stance to finish up, his unstoppable drive had kept him going at this insane pace for a month, unlocking some pretty sweet rewards along the way. Now, he possessed a brand new body art skill. As days blurred together with little change, his classmates began whispering about his bizarre behavior, mostly because he was busy sleeping like a baby through every single lecture. Leaving the classroom behind, he headed straight for the academy's massive library. Between workouts, he searched desperately for any clues about Dra. But it was a total dead-end, zero info on the World Destroyer, his status window, or even his player title. He was completely stuck. Even the system panel gave him nothing on the mysterious entity that granted him this power. But his deep thoughts were suddenly cut short when someone called out his name. Jason asked if he'd heard the latest rumors, looking visibly let down when he realized our main character was totally clueless. Shrugging it off, Lewin just asked what massive event he'd missed. He froze when he learned the head of House Ardell had arrived. His own father was actually at the academy to see him. Utterly shocked, the boy did not waste a second and bolted. Out of breath, he called out to his dad, who was calmly chatting with Professor Hill. Seeing his son, his father smiled warmly, glad he came. They quickly found a private spot to talk. Lewin immediately asked how his father was doing and if he was staying healthy. Then, he asked about his sister, Luina, who was still working herself to the bone training and swordsmanship just for his sake. Feeling a bit embarrassed by that update, the boy let out a soft laugh. But then, shifting the mood, he took a deep, serious breath. Looking straight at his father, he firmly declared he was doing just fine. His dad looked slightly confused by the sudden shift, taking a slow sip of tea to process the words. Putting his cup down, his father admitted he came to see if Lewin wanted to quit. If things were too hard or if there were issues he couldn't share, his father reminded him there was always a home waiting for him. Feeling the heavy weight of his dad's words, Lewin finally understood the real reason for this visit. He looked his father in the eyes and made a solemn vow he would absolutely crush the upcoming exam. If not, his dad would decide his future. Now pay attention, because the big exam day is finally here, and the professor is calling for silence. He warned them that anyone caught cheating on the magic introduction exam would fail instantly. Feeling the pressure, Lewin braced himself as the test split into written and practical phases. The practicals had 4 parts: target practice, magic measuring, live combat, and duels. Thanks to Lewin's summoning disorder, a guy named Mikkel Gary Hill always topped the class during these physical tests. But Lewin was determined to change the narrative. fully confident he'd take first place this time. A few days after the written exams wrapped up, the practical trials finally kicked off. Deep in thought, Lewin was snapped back to reality by Jason. His buddy mentioned he was acting weird and asked if he had a real plan for the day. Lewin casually replied he was trying a new approach, leaving Jason even more confused. But their chat gets interrupted by a loud, mocking voice demanding to know what Lewin is doing there. It is Mikkel, sneering as he asks if a failure like him is actually attempting the test. Lewin fires right back, saying of course he is. Smirking, Mikkel throws an arm over our main character's shoulder, offering some patronizing advice to a guy who has failed this exact exam 6 times already. He tells Lewin to quit now instead of embarrassing himself. Smiling sarcastically, Lewin replies that his advice is pretty useless, but Mikkel refuses to let it go. He sneers that someone with Lewin's disorder shouldn't even try. Gritting his teeth, he promises to utterly destroy him in a duel. Soon, the first exam begins multi-target shooting. You and I both know how these exam arcs go, but this year, they made it brutal with moving targets. One by one, students step up and fail miserably. Because of this, the scores are absolutely tragic. Some kids barely manage to hit 3 targets. The examiners groan at the terrible performance, realizing this graduating class might be a complete disaster. But one professor tells them to hold on. Professor Elrich calls up Mikkel, telling everyone to watch closely. Mikkel slowly steps up, channeling blue flames in both hands. The energy begins to surge violently. It is clear he is planning to show off big time. The signal rings out. The blonde unleashes his magic, striking multiple wooden dummies in a single, explosive blast that leaves the entire crowd absolutely stunned. Up in the VIP booth, Mikkel's proud uncle smugly asks the others what they think. With a wide grin, he boasts that his nephew will easily represent the academy at this year's festival, but a white-haired elder shuts him up. This is Tyrion Ignat, and he sighs, saying they have seen enough disappointing students today. However, Professor Heel begs him to wait just a bit longer, because Lewin is up next. Curious about the professor's confidence, the elder agrees to stay. Meanwhile, stepping up with a smirk, Lewin realizes this is the absolute perfect stage to test his newfound strength. The moment the starting signal drops, our main character begins channeling a massive fireball. Instantly, the air around him erupts in a blazing, intense heat. The examiners gasp at his lightning-fast casting speed, while the students watch in sheer disbelief. Mikkel just sneers, telling everyone that with Lewin's casting disorder, he will surely miss. But while that idiot is busy trash-talking and calling him useless, Lewin is already activating his hidden powers, bending time itself to boost his movement speed to absolutely ridiculous levels. This is his temporal refraction skill, allowing him to move at godlike speeds for 30 seconds. In other words, Lewin is transformed into an absolutely overwhelming typhoon of blazing fire. The entire arena gets swallowed by an explosion of flames. From above, the organizers watch in utter shock, while the students are left staring with their mouths wide open. With sheer confidence and explosive power, Lewin pulled it off. The wooden targets are completely vaporized. A shocked examiner announces Lewin hit 27 targets, sending a wave of stunned whispers through the crowd. Applause erupts from the VIP box. Even the legendary Lord Ignat stands up to praise him, while some students cheer. But Mikkel is left frozen in place. He is absolutely seething with rage, wondering how Lewin pulled off such a miracle. For the first time in 6 years, Lewin is showered with genuine cheers and respect. Lewin basks in a warm wave of satisfaction, the exact feeling he had always craved. Meanwhile, Professor Elrich is completely flabbergasted, shouting that casting and aiming simultaneously is impossible. Professor Hell counters, stating that magic is a vast world of infinite possibilities. He calmly adds that if everything always went exactly as expected, it would not be magic, but math. As Elrich keeps arguing, Lord Ignat raises his hand to silence him. He declares they just witnessed a flawless magical miracle. However, some professors still refuse to accept it. Mikkel's uncle is furious that Lewin caused such a scene. Meanwhile, Jason grabs our hero's neck, screaming that the legendary Archmage is heading their way. Suddenly, Lewin is famous, swarmed by curious students. It feels weird, since yesterday, he was a nobody. But trust me, you and I both know his epic journey is just getting started. Alright, you and I are about to jump into a wild story about a total underdog. Lewin knows he has enemies, but finding Mikkel waiting in his room, coldly, Lewin asks, "What are you doing here?" The blonde jerk warns him not to flex over a few points won without real magic. But Lewin just hits back with a smirk, asking if he is simply being a sore loser. That snaps Mikkel, who grabs Lewin by the collar in pure rage. But Lewin stays dead calm, grabbing his bully by the hand. Instantly, Mikkel freezes, feeling a bizarre, crushing pressure. Terrified by this sudden, overwhelming strength, the blonde kid panics. Stepping closer, Lewin deadpans that they can settle this one-on-one. With a desperate yank, Mikkel tears his hand free. He sneers, asking how a loser who failed for years thinks he is even qualified to fight him. Staring him down, Lewin tells him to wait and find out. Leaving, Mikkel snaps at him not to fail the next test. He storms out, burning with anger, convinced Lewin will absolutely bomb today's practical exam. But slipping his hand into his pocket, Mikkel winces from the pain of that grip. Staring at his fingers, he wonders if Lewin is actually a real mage. Meanwhile, the day of the exam arrives. With students whispering about a massive stone statue, the second exam begins. It is a magic power test using the legendary Kingrum statue. Students have to blast it to get a score. Lewin double-checks if they just need to blast the target with their strongest spell. But his friend warns him this stone ogre is famous for giving terrible scores. One student throws a wild lightning spell at the statue. But a creepy voice booms from the stone, giving him a single point and telling him to give up on magic entirely. Next is a confident girl with a ponytail. Smiling, she tells everyone to watch closely before unleashing a freezing ice spell directly at the stone monster. The ogre voice praises her, saying it will remember her because that was impressive, before brutally calling her a total piece of trash. She gets only 2 points and bursts into tears, as more students fail miserably and get roasted. One hothead named Jason even tries to fight the statue until the judge stops him. Then, it is Mikkel Gary Hill's turn. Locking his eyes on the target, he channels his magic through both hands and blasts the statue. His spell hits the ogre in multiple spots, but the statue just calls it disappointing. It asks if he is Josh Gary Hill's son, and Mikkel proudly claims his heritage. The statue roasts his father as a crybaby, calling Mikkel even more pathetic, handing him 27 points. The judge calms things down and calls up our main character, Lewin Ardell. Now watch this part closely. Our main character steps up. Trembling, Lewin wonders why he is so nervous as he charges his flame magic. Before attacking, he politely introduces himself. The statue shrugs it off, telling him to just start. Suddenly, the crowd gasps as they realize Lewin is building a massive flame mana burst. A 4th-class spell? Even the statue is shocked, watching Lewin's stance. In a flash, Lewin leaps forward, landing right next to the target, priming his strike. With pure focus, he slams his foot into the ogre. The judge is speechless, seeing Lewin instantly transfer the spell from fist to foot, completely shattering the crowd's expectations. That has to be a 5th-class spell. Landing in perfect balance, everyone starts wondering if Lewin is actually a god-tier mage hiding his true power. But the statue's reaction is bizarre. It ignores the test, demanding to know who this kid is. When Lewin tries to answer, the ogre cuts him off, asking if he is Dra. Let's pause here. You and I are probably wondering the exact same thing as the whispering students, who on earth is this Dra guy? Lewin has searched countless library books for months and found nothing, yet the statue clearly knows this name. He asks if they are familiar, and the stone ogre simply says yes. Breaking a sweat, Lewin begs for details. The ogre finds this hilarious, never imagining he would stumble upon the reincarnation of Dra in a place like this academy. As the statue begins to fade, Lewin quickly asks for his test score. But the ogre replies that his evaluation is over, because that level of magic is far beyond his ability to judge. The flustered judge tries to argue, saying they have a school contract to uphold, but the ogre does not care. This just pisses off the beast, who rants about grading pathetic students for years. He tells the academy to go to hell, but agrees to give a score just to satisfy the contract. To Lewin's shock, the statue asks what score he wants, 0 or 100. Smiling, Lewin obviously picks 100. Naturally, this insane score instantly becomes the talk of the entire school. Once again, our main character has broken the scale. Soon, Professor Heidel approaches him, saying the dean heard about his score and wants to hand him a special reward. Handing over a rolled-up scroll, Lewin reads the words Artifact Room and asks what it means. But the professor stays silent, gesturing for him to follow. Descending a dark flight of stairs, the professor reveals that this area is strictly forbidden to students. Lewin grows increasingly anxious, wondering why on earth he is being brought down here. Stopping before a massive door, the teacher says this is the artifact vault and his limit. Nervously, the boy asks if he has to go in alone. Stepping inside his reward chamber, Lewin finds a colossal vault packed with priceless, glowing relics. Staring around, Lewin figures this must be the legendary Archmage's vault. Suddenly, a booming voice slices through the silence, telling him he looks completely lost. It is the legendary Kingrum, but he is no longer made of stone. Revealing his true flesh and blood form, the giant explains this vault is the only place he can manifest his real body. When Lewin asks what he means by not knowing his worth, the beast chuckles. The kid is completely clueless. He is using the exact same unique artifact as the legendary player, Dry. The ogre demands to know where he found it and what his connection is to him. Lewin admits he is just as confused, asking who this Dra character even is. The giant's crimson eyes glow, explaining that Draco was a legendary being who sought to ascend to godhood. Long ago, Draco visited the Sky Peak tribe. His power was utterly terrifying, growing exponentially every single day until the tribe realized they could never hope to defeat him. Earning their absolute respect, Draco lived among them. He even spent nearly 100 years teaching magic to their chief, Kingram. Hearing this leaves Lewin completely frozen in shock. A human surviving for centuries? Impossible. But the beast just chuckles, revealing that Draco was never human. He was the legendary black dragon, Dragonia. Lewin struggles to process the news, unable to believe real dragons actually exist. He had heard tales of them being the source of magic, but always assumed it was just a fairy tale. Surprisingly, the dragon could not cast magic normally, so he created a style just like Lewin's, channeling raw power through physical strikes. Lewin suddenly realizes they shared the exact same struggle. Draco forged an unparalleled power that made him the strongest being alive. And trust me, you and I are about to watch our main character walk that very same path. You and I are about to see why Draco was feared. He pushed his power too far, destroying everything, leaving Lewin terrified of the legendary world destroyer. Suddenly, his status screen flashed, unlocking new abilities to talk with ogres and boost his skills. Now, holding a glowing orb named Strang, the pure essence of raw power, he wondered what it actually was. Cram explained it was a quest reward, asking to see it. After examining the orb, the ogre confirmed that this was no mere item, it was an incarnation. Lewin clutched the orb tightly, still confused about what it did. The ogre added that before dying, Draco must have sealed the creature inside this spirit stone. This spirit had a totally trash personality, but promised endless power if Lewin served its needs. Basically, a companion was about to hatch. Suddenly, the stone cracked, glowed brightly, and shattered into pieces. It transformed into a tiny creature, small enough to sit in his hand, a cute little brown bear cub. Rubbing its eyes, the baby beast immediately started complaining. The brat called me a bear, it whined. Lewin was shocked a beast could speak human language. Pointing its tiny paw, the angry creature yelled, "Stop treating me like a bear." Lewin stood frozen, completely speechless. Placing its tiny paws on its hips, the creature insisted it was no bear. When Lewin asked what it was, the little beast proudly replied that it was an incarnation. "I can be anything," it claimed. With a smug look, it promised to show off its power. Lewin watched with high hopes, but absolutely nothing happened to the little body. Confused, the creature whined about its lost power. Deciding it was just hungry after reincarnating, it demanded food, but Lewin bluntly told the little beast he had absolutely nothing to give it. The little bear grumbled, complaining about having such a weak master. Giving up on a meal, it just curled up to sleep, demanding to be woken up for dinner. Cram chimed in, noting that the spirit's rotten attitude had not changed one bit over the centuries. Watching the boy and Strang, the Ogre King remembered the ancient war he fought alongside them in his old home. Then the ogre asked Lewin a serious question. "This power will make you strong, but what exactly do you plan to do once you have achieved that strength?" Lewin remembered his true drive, protecting people from demons and restoring his family name, Ardell, to silence those who mocked him. Reflecting on his path, he knew he had too much at stake to let this opportunity slide. Now, pay attention here, this response is key. He vowed to fight for his family and himself, prompting Cram to smile and say he looked forward to his future. After that intense meeting, the boy's daily routine changed forever because he now had Strang tagging along. And the very second that little bear heard the word food, he would start drooling with sparkling eyes. Feeding him became a daily chore. Lewin had to charge up fire magic and feed it directly to the cub, who devoured huge amounts instantly. After eating, it would rub its neck in pure satisfaction. The food it ate was actually raw power earned from Lewin's missions. This special companion supercharged our hero's growth, proving incredibly useful. As the little bear evolved, Lewin's bonus power skyrocketed. Once it reached 31 stars, Lewin would gain a massive 3,100 strength. Even with under 1,000 strength, he already felt an incredible surge of power. Eager to level up faster, Lewin asked Strang how Dre got so strong. The smug cub just smirked. "If you want the secret, get me a glass of water," the bear teased. Lewin's gaze turned icy cold. "Keep quiet then," he growled. if you feel like starving. There were other ways to grow strong. He could clear harder missions, forge strength gear, or find ancient artifacts. Even boiling an ogre's tendon would make a crazy strong elixir. But those wild methods required at least 1,000 strength, meaning he was still only scratching the surface of his true potential. Lewin trained relentlessly until his strength reached 930. Finally, the third Royal Combat exam arrived, testing every mage's ability to manage extreme risks under pressure. Jason went first, unleashing a massive fireball, but a reckless mistake almost roasted his own knight allies. Just like that, he was disqualified. Fulgrin knights joined in to keep students safe and test teamwork. The brutal exam lasted 10 days, throwing different monsters at students depending on their score. You and I both know how these exams go, but on the final day, tension was insane. Suddenly, a massive roar shook the arena. A hulking orc charged in, flexing its rippling muscles. These aggressive beasts were larger than humans, possessed smart minds, and ruled the continent. Seeing one up front, the students were paralyzed with absolute terror. Everyone feared someone might actually die here. Luckily, Professor Heidel stepped up, his calm presence reassuring the crowd. Suddenly, the orc lunged forward with pure rage in its eyes. Frontline shield bearers blocked the beast's wild swings. Meeg, who was up next, began channeling his magic, unleashing a sharp ice arrow straight at the target. But the agile orc easily dodged it. Closing the gap instantly, the monster rushed the blonde student, ready to tear him apart. Heidel screamed out, warning him to move. The student knew he had to fight back, but fear froze him completely. Seeing this, Professor Heidel had to step in, casting his powerful forest prison spell. Thick vines burst from the dirt, trapping the orc right before it crushed the kid. The plant magic wrapped around its heavy neck, locking it in place. Still, the beast thrashed toward Mikkel, who collapsed in terror. Just like Jason, he was disqualified. Seeing this, Mikkel's uncle slammed his fist down in pure rage. Disgusted by his nephew's failure, he planned to sabotage Lewin's upcoming test. Meanwhile, Professor Elrich turned to the dean, asking if they should really proceed with the exam. The dean raised an eyebrow, noting Lewin was up next. With a fake smile, Elrich argued that since Lewin got a perfect score before, testing him normally was unfair. The dean saw his point but admitted they had no other dangerous monsters ready for the exam. Elrich smirked, revealing the knights had also captured a dangerous ogre. While using an ogre was highly risky, with the teachers and knights watching, it would make for an epic show. This would finally prove what Lewin was truly made of. Later in the silent corridors, Heidel waited for Lewin, who was surprised to see his teacher standing there. Heidel explained Lewin's test would be way harder. Because of high expectations, the board felt testing him like normal students was just too easy. Lewin asked what he would be fighting. Heidel dropped the bomb. His opponent was not an orc, but a massive ogre. This news shocked him. Inside the arena, the giant beast thrashed against its heavy chains. The knights stood ready, nervously gripping their weapons as it roared. Even the captain hated this idea, knowing an ogre could crush a human skull or shatter bones with a single strike. Lewin asked his professor if they were serious. Heidel confirmed it was the dean's orders. Nearby, the captain muttered that students were literally risking their lives. Lewin knew his life was on the line. Approaching the captain, Lewin introduced himself. "Trust me, you and I do not want to miss this battle." "All right," you and I are jumping right into a wild scene where a knight watches Lewin with sheer disbelief. There is no way this kid should face an ogre. Even with backup, Lewin suddenly goes completely off script. The captain instantly snaps at him, yelling that he is going the wrong way. A student belongs at the back, safely behind the vanguard. But Lewin insists on leading the charge, claiming his magic is built different. The knight barks back that frontline protection is impossible, demanding to know why he is actively trying to get himself killed. Lewin just whips off his cloak with a look of pure confidence. He mutters that he is desperate and keeps walking forward. The captain realizes there is not a single trace of fear on this kid. Right then, Professor Hell steps up, telling Lewin to get ready because the trial starts now. The professor snaps his fingers. Instantly, the heavy chains binding the ogre shatter open. A terrifying shriek pierces the room, and the beast lunges right at them. But instead of retreating, Lewin ditches the knights and sprints straight for it. The captain screams at him to halt, but Lewin completely ignores the warning. He winds up his fist, while the massive beast builds momentum to unleash an absolutely devastating strike right back. Boom! Lewin fires a massive flame blast directly at the monster. Their strikes collide with a massive shockwave that blinds the room. Fire explodes in all directions, leaving the guards completely frozen. The captain is stunned that Lewin actually pulled off a point-blank spell in a crisis like that. Hell watches closely, while the spectating students feel the literal shockwaves of the clash. Elrich and Ignat are watching with jaws dropped. A mere academy student going hand-to-hand against a giant ogre is just plain crazy. But when the heavy smoke clears, Lewin is still on his feet. The captain is shocked the kid is even breathing, while Hel just grins with satisfaction. The captain grabs Lewin by the shoulder, calling him out for not sharing this insane plan beforehand. Lewin just calmly apologizes, asking if the captain would have actually let him go had he told him. Before he can even respond, Lewin cuts in, saying they have an exam to finish. And he is right, the giant beast is still standing, snorting with pure fury. Now, pay attention here, this is where the tension hits the roof. The captain commands Lewin to step back, recognizing his power but warning him of the danger. He wants to handle it, but Lewin ignores him. Disobeying direct orders, he stands firm at the front. With a dead serious gaze, Lewin says this is his test to finish. Standing 5 times, Lewin sighs, the monster glares and snorts at him. Showing zero fear, Lewin steps closer. He has 2 major reasons for this crazy confidence. First, his rare ability to actually communicate with these beasts. Because of this, he knows the monster is actually screaming in fear, trapped by humans. The second reason is his system quest, strike the opponent first and secure the win. Completing this yields 30 extra strength stats, a massive daily buff he cannot pass up. There is absolutely no reason to hold back. Plus, after that initial explosive fist clash, the beast already knows Lewin is a real threat. Heat and flames fill the entire chamber. Lewin cleared his first task of landing the opening blow, but this fight is far from over. The beast roars a promise to tear him apart, leaping high to build speed before charging straight at him. Lewin stands way ahead of the guard, who has no chance of protecting him now. The giant screams, trying to smash Lewin's head in. Its massive fist craters the floor, but Lewin is way too fast and slips away. While dodging, our hero searches for a vital weak point. He triggers his temporal refraction skill. The captain's eyes widen as the boy blurs with insane speed, knowing he needs to close the distance immediately. Now check this out, Lewin spots a perfect opening to strike its weak point. Watching from the sidelines, you can see the absolute shock on the knights' faces as they watch him fight. The students are watching too, realizing this guy is on a whole different level. But the giant is not going down easily, winding up another massive, all-out punch to squash Lewin. Lewin parries the blow using a quick knee strike. But in a split second, the monster grabs Lewin's other leg and throws him like a ragdoll. Flying through the air, Lewin recovers his footing by rebounding off the wall, but he barely lands before the giant charges. The monster wastes 0 time, throwing a devastating punch that completely shatters the stone wall behind him. Showing crazy agility, Lewin dodges and flashes right behind his foe. The monster growls with pure hatred, calling him a cursed little rat. Lewin strikes again, shifting his stance to plant a heavy punch right in the giant's face. The beast crashes down with a massive thud, and Lewin leaps right on top, standing victoriously on its chest. Activating a strength buff, Lewin tells him it is over. Terrified, the monster asks if he is even human, but Lewin just asks if it really expects an answer. They can talk, but Lewin is not here to chat. He triggers a massive flame mana blast, and with the built-up rage effect, he goes full berserk mode. Fire erupts from the monster's body, filling the room with blinding heat until the beast's eyes finally fade to black. Catching his breath, Lewin looks down to see if it is finally done. Strang, observing the entire clash, admits the kid is way stronger than he predicted. Shocked murmurs spread through the crowd as they realize what just happened. Suddenly, the whole arena explodes, with students cheering Lewin's name at the top of their lungs. Elrich is left speechless and completely annoyed, while Ignat just smirks at the spectacle. Lewin actually took down an entire giant completely by himself. The captain rushes over, demanding to know who trained him in those skills. He refuses to believe Lewin is self-taught, but Lewin looks him dead in the eye and confirms he did it all himself. As Professor Hale approaches, Lewin immediately asks if he passed. The instructor stays quiet, completely lost in his own thoughts. He admits he never expected Lewin to pull off something this insane. But once again, Lewin completely blew past all limits. Hearing that he officially passed, a proud, confident smirk spreads across his face. With the quest completed, he unlocks a brand new skill called Player's Eye. Strang notes that the boy is finally stepping into the shoes of a real player. It is a legendary skill meant only for elite players, allowing him to spot targets even through stealth or full invisibility. On top of that, a minimap feature opens up. Lewin can now scan a 500-meter radius and read status details, but the system treats do not stop there. Strang tells him to test the skill on the fallen beast. Lewin activates it, and a clean status screen pops up, revealing its weak points and key data. But when he tries checking Professor Hell, nothing shows up. It is because his level is still too low to inspect high-tier targets. As he levels up, he will be able to unlock more detailed info. Lewin grins, realizing how incredibly useful this system feature is. Soon enough, rumors of his crazy solo victory spread all across the academy. Jason asks how it feels to be the talk of the school, but their chat is cut short as a girl approaches. Blushing, she asks if he is Senior Lewin, and soon a whole crowd of girls arrives bearing gifts and sweet snacks. They hand them over and run off. Lewin offers them to Jason, who gets furious at his disrespect. And that's where we leave it. You're going to want to see what's next. Alright, you and I are diving into a world where our main character, Lewin, can see everyone's hidden stats. While his buddy Jason whines, Lewin checks his status window and realizes this guy actually has crazy high potential. Shifting gears entirely, Lewin tells Jason to train harder, promising him he is going to absolutely crush the upcoming exam. Lewin reminds him that his skills are top tier, he just needs some self-belief. Totally fired up, the blonde guy vows to break into the top 10 next time. But then his voice drops, confessing that some things are still hard to believe. Like how Lewin does not seem like the same guy he has known for the last 6 years. Lewin looks up, knowing exactly what he means, because he feels completely different too. On top of that, wild rumors are spreading. People are saying he will soon surpass everyone to become the Academy representative. Cutting him off, Lewin stands up and says he does not care about any of that. But for Jason, it is not that simple. This is the year of the Grand Festival. Every 5 months, top students compete to see who is the best. And once every 8 years, a massive Olympiad gathers the greatest mages alive to crown an ultimate champion. When these events collide, it is called the Grand Festival. It showcases elite students from the most famous schools. With massive cash prizes and insane privileges on the line, competition is fierce. Every student in the academy is buzzing with excitement, wondering who will get picked as their representative. Over dinner, Jason confidently bets on Lewin. After all, Lewin scored a perfect 100 against King Ingram. Everyone still remembers how terribly Mikkel performed at the last festival, finishing 4th out of 5 fighters. Because of him, their academy got mocked for coming in dead last. The only way to wash away that humiliating reputation is to put all their hopes on Lewin. Keeping it real, Lewin warns him that the exams are not over, so it is way too early to celebrate. The final slot depends on grades and teacher recommendations. With his duel against Mikkel just around the corner, Lewin has to stay completely locked in. 4 days fly by, and Lewin trains non-stop in the arena, pushing himself to the limit. Now watch closely, because Lewin finally hits a massive milestone of 1,000 strength. Strang, his bear companion, gets excited and asks if it is time to level up. As Lewin gets ready, a system alert pops up. His repeat quest has evolved to level 2. The little bear leaps onto his shoulder, radiating intense, fiery energy. The quest difficulty just doubled, but the rewards? They tripled. Suddenly, Strang begins absorbing the ambient mana, and Lewin can feel the wild energy surging straight through his own body. The overwhelming force starts lighting up the entire room, catching Lewin completely off guard. He watches the flames exploding off the little bear grow fiercer by the second. His eyes widen in disbelief. He is left wondering what this crazy power-up actually means. Meanwhile, Professor Elrich is brooding, unable to erase the memory of Lewin completely vaporizing that giant ogre. He wonders if Lewin can actually beat Mikkel, though he still thinks a win is impossible. If it happens, Lewin will become the top dog of the academy. To Elrich, that is totally unacceptable. The Gary Hill family must stay at the very top. Once Lewin absorbs Strang's mana, the little bear advances to rank 2. As a bonus, Lewin gets rewarded with an extra 200 strength points. Checking out the little guy, Lewin remarks that he has grown quite a bit. Thanks to this evolution, Lewin's overall strength has instantly skyrocketed to 1,200. Smirking proudly, Strang brags that the quest, difficulty, and rewards have also gone up. Lewin pulls up his system screen to confirm it. Since he is already training on advanced mode, this will not be a problem. It should be easy enough. But Lewin wonders what real combat training actually means. Strang reminds him of their first meeting, when he promised he could transform into literally anything. From now on, the little bear can shapeshift into whatever he wants, though some limits still apply. He can even assume a human form once he reaches rank 5. Grinning slyly, the creature asks if Lewin wants a quick demonstration. Suddenly, Strang's body starts to morph as a massive swirling vortex wraps around his small, fragile frame. The vortex expands, and the tiny bear transforms into a creepy, towering scarecrow. Lewin is not exactly blown away, dryly pointing out that it is not what he expected at all. Lashing out at the boy, The Scarecrow warns him not to underestimate his power, bragging about how helpful he was during Draco's training. Basically, Strang is Lewin's new permanent sparring partner. This means they will be throwing hands every single day. Since his evolution is still low, Strang's power is currently equal to a third-class mage. But once he gets his full strength back, anything goes. If Lewin wants, Strang can even turn into a dragon or a demon. Excited, Lewin tells him to switch to his mage form so they can start right now. The little bear's eyes glow with a wicked chuckle as he accepts. In his paw, a sphere of raw energy materializes, instantly morphing into a powerful magic staff. Even if his spells hit Lewin directly, they will only knock him back without causing real harm. Plus, Strang won't take damage either. He is literally the ultimate training dummy. Let's pause for a second here. While Lewin easily dodges Strang's magic attacks, he can't help but think about his rival. He knows Mikkel is also training hard for their duel, and you and I can feel the hype building for test day. Cut to Mikkel complaining to his uncle, totally furious about Lewin's growth and begging for a solution. But this whining only pisses Elrich off more, and he snaps that Mikkel should be the one putting in actual effort. Looking at his uncle, the blonde reveals he heard rumors that Elrich rigged Lewin's grades and set up that ogre fight. So, ironically, Elrich's scheme gave Lewin a perfect score. If the rest of the noble Gary Hill family ever finds out, it will ruin them. Gritting his teeth, the professor asks if his nephew is trying to blackmail him. Mikkel tells him to stop talking trash and help him find a way to win. If Lewin becomes the Academy's official representative, they lose everything. But Elrich has a dark plan, handing Mikkel a small, glowing vial. Mikkel immediately recognizes it as the awakening herb, the blazing flower. This dangerous northern herb is highly restricted and used to brew illegal, power-boosting elixirs. Drinking it slashes your mana consumption to 0, but you won't feel pain and you might kill your own allies. Elrich is genuinely shocked his nephew actually paid attention in class. Nervous, the blonde asks if he is supposed to cheat using this drug. Elrich confirms it is their only hope to save face, but Mikkel points out that the headmaster knows his actual limits and will definitely suspect something is up. Smiling wickedly, Elrich reminds him that he is the one in charge of the drug tests. Then, he hands him a second potion designed to completely erase any trace of the cheat drug. Mikkel just has to drink it right after using the blazing flower. He tells him to be fearless, because as Gary Hills, cheating is just how they climb to the top. With a sinister whisper, the uncle asks one final time if he is in. And just like that, the day of the highly anticipated one-on-one combat test arrives. The arena is completely packed with screaming fans, all waiting for the epic showdown between Mikkel and Lewin. The two bitter rivals slowly step onto the battlefield. Feeling the pressure, Lewin knows the climax is here. Strang warns him, Mikkel likely prepared for his close combat. And trust me, you and I are going to love this showdown. Alright, you and I are about to watch Lewin step into a modified arena, where just one clean hit could end this fight instantly. As the referee professor steps up to ask if they are ready, the tension is absolute madness. Lewin locks his eyes on his opponent, coldly analyzing the situation, and immediately senses something off. Mikkel is not his usual arrogant self, and his state seems incredibly weird. Deciding to investigate, Lewin activates his player's gaze skill. That is when he spots that Mikkel possesses double-casting magic, and he is currently in a full-blown berserk state. This bizarre condition is totally new to Lewin. He suspects a hidden booster, possibly a camouflage drug. Since Professor Elrich was the one handling the pre-match inspections, Lewin immediately smells a massive rat. Stepping forward, the professor announces that only forbidden dark magic is banned. The final score will be determined solely by the raw power of spells landed. He reassures everyone that the arena reduces magic damage by 99%, preventing fatal injuries. But Lewin raises his hand, asking what happens if someone gets caught using a banned potion. The professor states that any cheater will face instant disqualification, followed by a strict investigation that could lead to immediate expulsion from the academy. Elrich asks why he is curious, but Lewin shrugs it off, muttering that it is nothing. The referee then orders both combatants to their starting positions. Since Lewin is the only one who can see statuses, no one would believe his word. He needs to secure concrete proof during the battle. Both fighters glare at each other, waiting for the signal to begin. Now pay attention here, because this is where the real action kicks off. With the start signal, both boys charge, rage burning in Mikkel's eyes as he conjures a spell. Leaping at Lewin, Mikkel summons magical roots to bind his opponent's legs. But Lewin's physical strength is on another level, easily tearing through them and leaving the crowd completely speechless. The barrier might weaken magical damage, but it cannot slow down Lewin's raw power. Shouting in frustration, the blonde conjures a flaming magic skull, screaming, "Did you think that was it?" The skull spews a massive torrent of fire straight at Lewin. Barely dodging the blast, Lewin spots a massive boulder nearby and slides behind it, completely shielded from the raging flames. Peeking out to plan his next move, Lewin observes Mikkel's rapid-fire casting. He realizes the boy must have consumed a speed-boosting, mana-enhancing potion. With a maniacal face, the blonde screams for Lewin to stop hiding. Seeing his opponent's unstable behavior, Lewin connects the dots. This is definitely the effect of the band-awakening herb, the flaming flower. All the symptoms align perfectly. Now he just needs to confirm if it suppresses pain. Stepping out from behind the rock, Lewin confidently announces he knows exactly why the blonde is so cocky. He yells that the flaming flower won't save him, since he doesn't need dirty tricks to win. Striking a fierce combat stance, Lewin declares he is finally going all out. Dashing forward, Lewin activates his time refraction. Mikkel desperately tries to prep his ice spells, but our hero's speed is simply too fast to track. The blonde attempts to summon a thick wall of ice, but it's completely useless. Unleashing a fiery, high-impact kick, Lewin shatters the frozen barrier into a million pieces. The spectating professors watch in absolute awe. In a desperate panic, Mikkel summons a colossal fire-breathing lizard. However, Lewin counters instantly, channeling his own devastating earthquake magic straight into his fist. He punches the ground, triggering a massive shockwave that instantly disintegrates the fiery beast. The crowd goes wild as Lewin uses earth magic to shut down a fire attack. Terrified and completely out of options, Mikkel screams, realizing Lewin has already closed the distance. He begs Lewin to stay away. Smirking mockingly, Lewin tells him not to be a total coward before extending his fingers mere inches away from the boy's terrified face. Can you believe this? A simple finger flick creates a massive boom echoing outside the arena. With just that tap, Lewin blasts his opponent away, leaving everyone utterly stunned. As a massive dust cloud rises, Lewin calmly watches the aftermath of his strike. Slumped against a rock, Mikkel slowly stands up with a crazed grin, claiming he was underestimated. Lewin gives him zero breathing room. Closing the gap, he lands a brutal punch directly to the blonde's jaw, sending him flying again to crash hard against a stone pillar. Yet, despite the beatdown, Mikkel laughs hysterically, mocking that Lewin's hits are weak and don't hurt. He brags that he might actually die of boredom. Lewin places a heavy hand on his shoulder, warning him that continuing is too dangerous. Activating his tree of imprisonment, he conjures thick roots that wrap tightly around Mikkel's body. Our hero raises his arm, openly accusing Mikkel of consuming a banned drug. The referee steps up, warning Lewin that a false accusation means instant disqualification. Lewin firmly replies that he is positive, stating some elites can create undetectable substances. Hearing this, a sweating, Professor Elrich begins to panic internally. Lewin explains that such a drug requires a master alchemist who had direct access to the pre-fight tests. In this entire school, only one man fits that profile. Instantly, suspicious eyes turn to Elrich. Elrich steps in, angrily demanding what Lewin is implying and if he's accusing him of covering up drug use. But Lewin calmly responds that he has undeniable proof. Elrich suggests a standard retest, but Lewin explains a masking elixir was used to hide it. The cornered professor then asks what he plans to do. Placing his hand on the wooden roots, trapping Mikkel, Lewin promises to reveal the truth directly. With a light touch, he shatters the tree trunk, explaining that this possesses the exact same force as his earlier finger flick. Even with boosted magic, Mikkel kept laughing and standing after a blow that should have knocked him out cold. Even trapped, he won't stop giggling because he literally cannot feel any pain. Lewin demands to know if Elrich can still deny this blatant evidence. Suddenly, Dean Ignite's furious voice echoes through the entire stadium, calling out the guilty professor. The Dean is absolutely livid, his rage radiating across the arena. He roars, questioning how Elrich could commit such a crime, and commands him to march to his office. Caught red-handed, the corrupt professor knows he is completely finished. Meanwhile, Mikkel continues, laughing maniacally inside his wooden prison. Soon after, the chaotic fourth test finally comes to an end. Elrich and his nephew are expelled, exposing the deep corruption of the Gary Hill family. Lewin earns a badass new nickname, the General Expeller, before walking toward a massive portal summoned by the Dean. As he waits, a strange, powerful energy surges through his body. Stepping through the doorway, Lewin is completely shocked. He finds himself standing in an open field he knows by heart, his home, the Ardell territory. Looking closer, he realizes things are slightly off. Resting right in front of him is a grand chair, Terran's throne where the legendary king of mages usually sits. Our hero wonders why this legendary seat is here. Suddenly, Ignite appears behind him, asking what he sees. The Dean explains this pocket space was forged by the Eye of Malor, the feared demon lord who first invaded the continent of Freya. This artifact has the power to force its target to witness their deepest desires. Malor's Eye reveals one's ultimate dreams, meaning this world reflects Lewin's soul. Deep down, his greatest ambitions are to revive his family's Ardell territory and become the most powerful mage in history. And as we wrap up, the Dean muses on his own vision, a simple world where students and mages act as they should. Trust me, this journey is only getting wilder. All right, you and I are about to watch our main character climb to the absolute peak. As Lewin leaves the room, he takes one last look back and catches a glimpse of his future holding a massive victory trophy surrounded by cheering friends. Then, he sees himself in graduation robes, finishing his academy years. These incredible visions bring a proud smile to his face. Back in the office, Dean Ignat offers Lewin some tea. While the young man drinks, the dean watches him closely before dropping the real question. He wants to know exactly how Lewin figured out that Mikkel was using the blazing flower and other banned stimulants during their fight. Lewin gulps, trying to play it cool. He explains that Mikkel's energy felt completely off, especially with his extreme aggression and totally abnormal mana flow. Dean Ignat can tell Lewin was completely sure of himself, not just guessing. Still, our hero decides there is absolutely no need to reveal his secret powers just yet. So, he claims he relies purely on physical strength rather than magic, which the arena cannot suppress. He points out that even after taking heavy physical blows, Mikkel kept laughing without showing a single hint of pain. The only logical explanation had to be that blazing flower. Ignat is highly impressed despite the boy's young age. He is incredibly sharp and holds immense potential. As Dean, he deeply apologizes for the incident and promises that the Gary Hill family will not trouble him again. But that is not all. Ignat makes an unbelievable offer, asking Lewin to represent the entire academy at the grand festival happening in the 7th month of this year. Lewin is absolutely stunned. This is the ultimate spot that literally every student in the academy would die for. Our hero shuts his eyes, trying to process his rising excitement. He starts by thanking the dean for such an incredible honor. But the truth is, Lewin has absolutely zero competitive experience, having not fought a real battle in 5 whole years. His past years were a complete waste because of his crippling mana disorder. Naturally, he feels he lacks the strength to compete at such a massive tournament. But the dean does not see that as an issue at all. In fact, he believes Lewin has the potential to actually win the whole thing. It sounds crazy, but Ignat is absolutely sure our main character has what it takes. Now pay attention here, he is basically a secret weapon. To his rivals, Lewin is a total mystery. There is zero data on his fighting style, meaning nobody can prepare a counter. Lewin realizes this is a massive advantage, unlike in his past life where he was always under the spotlight. The dean asks one more time if he is ready for this challenge. With fierce determination, Lewin promises to do his absolute best to live up to that trust. Right then, a sudden knock sounds at the door, and the dean bids them enter. Ignat explains that physical combat training will serve him far better than standard magic classes, introducing a brand new instructor. Lewin instantly recognizes the man walking through the door. It is none other than Golter Piranti, who jokes that Lewin does not look very pleased to see him. This legendary knight leads the Fuldren troops and is one of the rare rank 6 powerhouses in the kingdom. This is the same elite warrior who fought beside Lewin against the massive ogre in the 3rd exam. Before they begin training, the knight wants to clarify something. He heard from Professor Hadel that Lewin is a mage forced to fight strictly in close combat. Our hero nods in agreement. Golter admits that from what he saw during their battle, Lewin's combat movements were incredibly efficient and had zero wasted energy. Even so, it is clear the young man has never received proper martial arts training. Those raw moves might work against a brainless ogre, but a seasoned knight would easily predict and counter them. Lewin knows the knight is absolutely correct since his fighting patterns are extremely basic. But Golter promises that under his guidance, Lewin can surpass his current limits and reach a whole new level. He asks if they can begin immediately. For any true warrior, footwork is everything, meaning Lewin must first learn the art of walking. Only after mastering his steps can he truly unlock elite martial arts. The celestial martial arts are legendary techniques usually reserved for elite knights. Lewin throws a lightning-fast strike with his arm, whipping up a violent gust of wind with raw force. Aside from swordplay, this art is made up of 36 distinct movements. Building up sudden momentum, Lewin charges forward to test a fresh technique, unleashing a rapid barrage of punches and kicks. You and I can see his master, Golter, just watching with a knowing smile, leaving Lewin completely baffled. Lewin honestly questions why Golter is willing to teach him without asking for anything in return. The knight simply calls it a smart investment, explaining that guiding a future high-ranking mage early on is the best deal he could ever make. Incredibly grateful, Lewin bows deeply, promising to give it his all. However, the veteran knight finds the stiff formality annoying, telling Lewin to just call him Hyung instead. Pushing through the brutal grind, Lewin becomes a total blur as he fires rapid punches into the air to perfect his form. Hyung watches closely, thoroughly impressed by the kid's fast progress and insane dedication. He remembers inspecting the slain ogre's completely shattered jaw. Lewin is a true anomaly, a close combat mage whose raw power rivals a giant beast. Soon, 3 weeks fly by. Lewin's stats absolutely skyrocket, and his beast companion, Strang, even evolves to rank 3. Our hero's strength reaches a mind-boggling 2,030 points, shocking even his little bear summon. It took Dra a whole year and a half to hit 2,000 strength, the beast notes. Suddenly, an urgent shout cuts their talk short. Jason comes running toward them, completely out of breath. Lewin asks, "What's wrong?" Gasping for air, Jason struggles to speak, telling him that the Grand Festival's official participant list has just been posted right at the Academy entrance. Lewin vividly recalls his entrance ceremony, where representing the freshmen earned him nothing but bitter, jealous glares. For 5 long years, his performance at the school had been considered absolute trash. He was forced to watch from the sidelines while Mikkel hogged all the glory. But now, the tables have turned. Lewin sprints to the crowded entrance, and the moment he spots the announcement, his heart starts racing. Lewin Ardell is officially the Academy's sole representative. Instantly, the surrounding students turn and rush over to congratulate him. Through endless sweat and tears, our main character has officially reclaimed his rightful spot. Meanwhile, Professor Heidel is absolutely stunned when Golter reveals that the boy has already fully mastered the celestial martial arts. For a mere 16-year-old to reach the 5th class is downright terrifying. Yet, the teacher deeply believes this young man can accomplish whatever he sets his mind to. Time flies by, and the selected students begin their journey to Alta, the Grand Arena. Inside the fast train, excited voices echo as everyone chats about the massive event. While the crowd celebrates, Lewin sits quietly with his eyes closed, mentally preparing. But while some are thrilled, others look highly annoyed. Suddenly, an irritated student snaps, telling everyone to quiet down. Our hero looks over, sensing trouble. It is Hanks, one of Mikkel's former lackeys who also took part in the Grand Festival last year. He mocks the crowd, saying that expecting a miracle from Lewin is completely delusional. Another spiky-haired student chimes in, claiming Mikkel was a far superior choice. Ultimately, the arrogant jerk sneers that he refuses to accept Lewin as their true representative. Lewin immediately recognizes them as the parasites who use the Gary Hill name for their own selfish benefits. Our hero fires right back, mocking how touched Mikkel must be that his loyal little lapdogs are still barking even after their master got expelled. Instantly, the room becomes incredibly tense. Hanks is absolutely furious, but Lewin refuses to budge an inch. The angry lackey argues that Lewin does not deserve to lead them, but our hero shuts him down, declaring this tournament will be completely different. Watching Hanks, you and I can see he has zero confidence in them. All right, you and I are diving into a wild magic tournament journey. Our main character steps right up to the doubters, proving anything is possible when they work as a team instead of fighting. Furious, the guy barks back, asking if Lewin expects to compete without them. But Lewin just warns them to think carefully on the journey, because nobody at Gary Hill will care about their fake loyalty. Hankus roars that he refuses to take orders from some rookie. Just then, the student train finally screeches to life, speeding toward the Grand Festival. Everyone gasps at the mind-blowing speed of the train. Inside his head, Strang laughs, realizing just how much this world has changed since he was last alive. Suddenly, the cabin door slams open where Jason and Lewin are sitting. A mocking voice sneers that he can smell losers, as 3 bullies step into trash talk the country bumpkins. Their emblems show they're from the Oyota National Institute of Magic, a brutal, desolate place famous for elite swordsmanship and crazy physical training. Lewin is confused, wondering why these thugs are even here. Their bald leader sneers, demanding to know where Mikkel is, mocking that the blonde kid must be Lewin's new servant. The bald jerk keeps throwing insults as he struts through the train. Inside Lewin's mind, Strang remarks how insanely patient he is for not snapping right now. Our main character knows his academy always gets treated like garbage. He glances toward the back of the carriage, seeing that Professor Hell is just watching and won't interfere. See, the representative holds all the power now. The bald bully leans over Hanks's seat, demanding Mikkel's whereabouts again, when a cold voice cuts through the cabin. He's probably resting in bed with broken ribs. Lewin stands up, ready to shut down this clown's little show. Dumbfounded, the bald guy mumbles, asking if Lewin is the new representative. Now, watch closely, because this arrogant jerk is about to get a reality check. He struts over, introducing himself as Seda Maliri, the representative of Yoda Academy. Lewin calmly introduces himself right back. But the polite talk ends fast. Our main character coldly orders the guy to get out of their carriage. But before he leaves, he has to apologize for every single insult. Hearing this, Seta loses his mind, scoffing in disbelief that anyone would dare demand an apology. The bald hothead turns to Hankies, barking if he forgot to warn the new representative. If so, maybe Hankies needs another beating to remember his place. Lewin quickly pieces the situation together. This explains why everyone was shaking when Yoda showed up. They'd all been beaten down by Seta before. It is a classic move to crush their spirits before the tournament even starts. Looks like the Magic Festival has already started. Smirking, our hero challenges him, asking if he wants to throw hands right here. Seta's rage boils over, and he winds up a massive punch to strike Lewin. But before he can swing, a mysterious cloaked figure steps in and commands him to stop. Seta freezes instantly, calling him Professor. The professor scolds the boy, turning to Professor Hale to apologize. He shoves Seta, ordering him back to their carriage. The bald jerk stomps off, swearing he will get payback. Our hero stands tall, realizing leading this team won't be easy. Meanwhile, back in their cabin, Seta angrily asks his professor why he stopped him when this whole ambush was his idea. The professor just shakes his head, asking the boy if he can't see the smile on his face. Actually, Professor Hale was smiling too, almost like he anticipated this exact showdown. It is hard to say if it is pure confidence or a hidden agenda, but Lewin clearly has secrets. He is nothing like the weakling they fought last year. Seta goes quiet, thinking over his teacher's words. Once the Yoda bullies leave their carriage, the entire vibe completely shifts. I know what you're thinking, are these rivals finally teaming up? Yes, indeed. These selfish, jealous students are actually starting to unite, chattering excitedly and vowing to give it everything they've got. Still, many are shaking, knowing the Yoda fighters have spent their whole lives training. Lewin cuts in, asking if they even feel any anger. Those bastards spat on their honor. If Lewin had stayed quiet, those jerks would have just mocked them even harder, confirming that they really are just country bumpkins. Lewin demands to know if they want to be stepped on forever, reminding them that their submission has let those fools mock them for 5 whole years. This is no time to let petty egos divide them. The spiky-haired kid walks up with hankies, suggesting they make Lewin the goalie for the upcoming Aero Ball match. It looks like the former bullies are finally backing him. Next stop, the Duchy of Alta. Grab your bags, everyone. The Duchy of Alta belongs to the Imperial Federation of Riak, standing proud as the single neutral territory in the whole empire. If any fighting erupts inside Alta, the Supreme Empire steps in immediately to deliver harsh justice. That is why Alta hosts legendary global magic and fencing tournaments, like the Festival of Magic. The Academy students look around in absolute awe, totally mesmerized by the beautiful city. Jason points out that it feels like a whole new world compared to their home state of Damon. Lewin is equally amazed. The majestic capital radiates an ancient vibe, and the locals seem completely at peace. Taking it all in, our hero really feels like a small-town kid. The group is then escorted to their lodging, climbing into the waiting carriages. During the ride, Professor Hale chats with Lewin, giving a stern warning. He tells the boys to stay away from rival school dorms, because starting a fight there will only lead to disaster. Lewin feels totally called out as the professor stares right at him. Suddenly, something catches Strang's attention, making the little beast look up. The little companion is so hyped it takes Lewin by surprise. Claiming he caught an incredibly rare scent, the tiny creature leaps right off Lewin's shoulder. Sniffing around, he is positive that Draco's legendary relic is hidden somewhere nearby. By the next morning, Jason is half asleep, while Lewin is already fully dressed and rushing out. He sprints out the door like his life depends on it. Glancing at Strang, the young man asks for confirmation, and the spirit assures him it will show up on the map shortly. They stop in front of a sign for the all-teens memory-touching workshop. This is it. Our hero steps inside, surprised that a legendary item used by a black dragon is sitting in such an ordinary shop. Lewin figured it would be hidden in a black market or a noble's private vault. But when he triggers his gamer's eye skill, a strange glow catches his attention from the shelves. The hidden artifact pulses with a majestic light that fills the room. Turns out, this ring was Draco's very first creation, but also his biggest failure since it is almost useless. Disappointed, Lewin crosses his arms while Strang chuckles, saying it is definitely unique. This ring resists attacks, but it also blocks friendly handshakes and even a girlfriend's warm hug. It may seem completely pointless, but it is still worth grabbing. Plus, the ring grants a massive boost of 200 extra strength points, making it an absolute steal. It slips onto his finger perfectly, as if it was custom-made for him. Lewin asks the owner for the price, but the old man smiles and says it is free, since it was gathering dust anyway. Not wanting to take advantage, Lewin decides to buy other items. His gamer's eye skill comes in clutch here to spot the best loot. Trust me, you and I are going to love seeing what he buys next. Alright, you and I are starting with our hero browsing the library, when a super rare book on magic swordsmanship catches his eye. But just as he reaches out, a gorgeous white-haired girl steps up. Thanks to his special eyes, Lewin instantly sees her stats, Irene Prius, a 5th-class prodigy with insane magical potential. She was even chosen by the legendary king of mages, Terran Artemis, as one of the 11 next-generation mages. Rumors called her a top-tier genius, but seeing her in person, he knew they underestimated her. When she coldly demands he drop the book, Lewin refuses, standing his ground. She explains that since he already has his main purchases and is just browsing, she really needs this specific book. She politely asks if she can take it, hoping he will let her have it without a fight. Curious, he asks why she wants a book that literally nobody else would care about. Suddenly nervous, she starts sweating, completely unable to answer him. Blushing, she mutters that it is for private reasons she cannot share. Lewin does not buy that this is a simple academy assignment, it has to be a special royal mission. Deciding to be a gentleman, our hero hands it over, letting her take it since she clearly needs it. He turns away to search for something else instead. Irene stares in deep gratitude. Later back at the dorms, Lewin mentions the encounter, and his friends instantly lose their minds in excitement. Jason and Hanks bombard him with questions about her legendary beauty. The blonde guy practically weeps with jealousy, crying about how he only ever dreamed of touching her hand just once. Hanks brags that he actually sat near her at a festival once, sparking a hilarious, completely pointless argument between the two boys. But Lewin shifts the focus to her insane strength, explaining she always ranks second, losing only to Doom Prime. That guy is the absolute top prodigy from the Rain School, the most feared young mage on the continent. Now think about this, he wields the legendary Sword of Radiance, which explains why she absolutely needs that book to beat him. But being a magic swordsman is usually a trap. Swords do not channel mana well, and mastering knightly arts is brutal. Yet, Doom Prime is on a whole different level. His blade is a mythical artifact, and his raw combat skills put elite knights to shame. Jason starts grumbling about his unfair, cheat-like life rich, handsome, and insanely talented. This leaves our hero deep in thought. Irene mastered 5th-class magic at 16, yet Prime still dominates. Can an ignored nobody like Lewin even stand a chance against monsters like them? But his dean's words echo in his head. He is a contender for victory. Closing his eyes, he vows to prove it with everything he has. Suddenly, the door flies open as a spiky-haired kid rushes in, screaming that the schedule for the grand opening ceremony is finally out. That instantly snaps Lewin out of his thoughts. He heads straight for the exit, focused entirely on the massive festival that has finally kicked off, as students from all academies gather in excitement. Our main character is tense, desperate to see their matchup. Suddenly, names flash on the giant screen, and the announcer reveals their first opponents, the infamous Oyota Academy. Lewin looks over as their opponents start loudly boasting about an easy win. Seda sneers that drawing Ignite first is pure luck, a perfect chance to have some fun. But Lewin knows Oyota is the absolute worst matchup. They are notorious for playing incredibly dirty, leaving rival students physically and mentally scarred. Seda keeps laughing, mocking them as weaklings who are not even worth a warm-up, causing the rest of the Oyota crowd to burst into arrogant laughter. You and I both know Lewin isn't about to let this disrespect slide. He smiles, walks right up to Seda, and calmly introduces himself, ready to prove that Ignite Academy is a completely different beast now. Speaking with absolute authority, our hero looks them dead in the eye, offering a simple greeting before dropping one very specific, serious request. Stop calling them losers. He finds it incredibly annoying. This bold attitude completely stuns the arrogant, bald Seda. Lewin is totally done being treated like trash at the bottom. Now he is fighting straight for the peak. The Oyota crowd just laughs, screaming that they will call them whatever they want, while Seda sneers and demands to know who he thinks he is. Remembering his dean's belief in him, a blazing determination ignites in Lewin. He is their ultimate trump card, and he will never back down again. Back at the Oyota dorms, an intense debate breaks out. The guys try to figure out Lewin Ardell's deal, quickly digging up his past as a complete academic failure. But then, he suddenly scored a massive 180 points, pulling off an insane turnaround. They assume his sudden confidence comes purely from this fluke exam score. Seda recalls his professor's strange warning that Lewin holds hidden power. However, he quickly brushes it off, laughing them off as weaklings who stand zero chance. Stretching lazily, he plans to crush them the brutal traditional Oyota way. Meanwhile, back at Ignite, everyone prepares for tomorrow's big mana grenade event. This intense team battle requires every single member to play, except the main representative. Teams must face giant mithril golems, throwing explosive mana grenades to blast them apart. The squad that destroys their golem the fastest wins. Nervous, one student approaches Lewin, asking if they can actually survive this match without their strongest fighter. Lewin honestly admits that Ignite lacks the raw talent of Oyota. However, he knows victory is still possible. Since it is a team game, perfect cooperation will easily bridge the gap. To pull this off, they must assign specialized roles immediately. Group 1 crafts the grenades, Group 2 delivers them, Group 3 attacks, and Group 4 heals the enemy's golem to sabotage them. The students look worried, complaining that this defensive style will take way too long to secure a win. Lewin, fully focused, refines his strategy. He looks at his classmates and asks if they honestly believe what he said on stage earlier. When he promised they would take first place, he meant it. He is fully prepared to give everything to support them, even in events he cannot play himself. Arrogant teams can rely on solo power, but for Ignite, that is a fast track to defeat. Hearing this, Jason speaks up, saying he completely trusts Lewin. Hanks agrees, instantly boosting everyone's spirits as they rally behind the new strategy. Hanks takes charge of the specialized squad crafting the explosive mana grenades. Tonzi is set to transport them. Our hero organizes everyone based on their raw stats, using his gamer's eye skill to analyze their traits, cover their weaknesses, and maximize their hidden potential. Seeing the perfect team structure, the students quickly build confidence. Even the most doubtful members begin to feel a genuine surge of hope for tomorrow's match. Lewin was relieved his specialized setup worked, because you and I know that confidence is always the first step to a massive victory. But just as hope builds, Fulham stumbles into the room, covered in bruises. Shocked, Lewin rushes over to find out what happened, only to learn the Oyota leader and his thugs ambush the poor guy. Let's dive right into the action. A massive crash echoes through the Yoda halls as Lewin confronts Seta, who is already waiting for him. Sneering, Seta brags that he knew Lewin would show up, mocking him with a smirk. But our hero just raises his hand and firmly commands, Seta Maliri, get over here. We need to talk. Seta just laughs, calling him completely insane. But Lewin doesn't blink, he drops a heavy hand onto Seta's shoulder, crushing down with unreal, terrifying force. That brutal weight drops Seta straight to his knees. Furious and humiliated, Seta swings a wild punch, but Lewin effortlessly slips past it like it is nothing. Grabbing his rival's arm in a vice-like grip, Lewin warns him, lay a finger on another student outside the arena, and you will pay dearly. Seta collapses, writhing in pain while glaring back up. Lewin just stares down, calmly offering a wager. Soon, back at Ignite, the students are buzzing with excitement. If they beat Yoda, Seta has to take a devastating finger flick and apologize to everyone. This crazy deal completely fires up the students, fueling their determination. But someone cuts through the hype, reminding them to rush to Alta Stadium. The Grand Festival is starting, bringing together the strongest mages from across the entire continent. Historically, the winners here go on to reshape the world. You can see the change in the Ignite students. They are finally standing tall, packed with hope. For Lewin, standing where legends are made is absolutely thrilling. Suddenly, a mustached elder wraps up the opening ceremony. Lewin turns to leave, but something instantly catches his eye. Seta glares, warning him to stay sharp because he won't make the same mistake twice. The bald fighter walks off, but honestly, Seta is not the opponent Lewin is analyzing. He looks elsewhere, locking eyes with the infamous Doom Prime, the reigning festival champion and leader of the elite Rain School. Doom Prime is the ultimate threat they must face if they want to win it all. As Lewin plots his next move, a familiar voice teases that he is just a magnet for trouble. Irene approaches from behind with a playful smile. She mentions she saw him yesterday, starting fights and wrecking the peace over at the Oyota dorms. Word travels fast around here, so she figures everyone already knows. A bit embarrassed, Lewin defends himself, saying he only wanted to talk. Since he let her have that book, Irene decides to throw him some advice, keep a low profile. Lewin fires back, asking if he should just hide his true power like she does. He runs off as the first event starts gathering competitors, leaving Irene visibly shook by his comment. In just a few minutes, the magic grenade match is about to begin. The Ignite squad gears up, completely focused. James hypes everyone up, shouting that today they prove they are no longer the Mongols. With that, they head out as the first challenge begins. The crowd is confused. Usually, matches depend on solo talent, so this group format is weird. Still, everyone gossips, assuming the Yoda team has this victory in the bag. Lewin tries to ignore the nasty insults about his school. Behind him, Irene closely watches his reactions, but she can't even believe what is happening on the field. Even though Ignite's golem already lost an arm, the students refuse to back down, pushing past their limits. From the sidelines, Lewin screams out non-stop tactical advice. Under his brilliant guidance, they actually shatter their opponent's right arm, too. Watching this, one person is absolutely boiling with rage. Seda starts screaming, completely losing his mind over how they are losing to the Mongols. The Ignite team shows no mercy, ruthlessly pummeling the Oyota golem without letting it recover. Seda is practically bursting with pure hatred. Meanwhile, Irene covers her mouth in shock, completely amazed. Ignite's sudden lead is entirely thanks to a flawless strategy. Let's look closely here. This plan only works because someone calculated every single player's raw strength perfectly. Lewin did not just find Irene's book instantly, he mapped out his entire team's exact strengths and weaknesses. Now, Irene can't help but wonder who this guy really is, and why he has never shown up before. Jason charges up a massive magic grenade, throwing it full force to blow a giant hole right through the golem. That devastating blow leaves Seda absolutely speechless. He swallows hard, completely unable to speak. The massive golem collapses into a heap of rubble, and the Ignite students instantly explode into wild, happy celebrations. The magic grenade game everyone expected Yoda to dominate is won by the underdogs instead. The Mongols are officially out of last place, leaving Yoda behind to be mocked as mere scraps. Next up is the high-stakes capture the flag match, and the entire Ignite crowd is screaming for Lewin. Once again, it is a direct showdown between Ignite and Yoda. Strang points out that Lewin looks a bit tense. Lewin smiles, noting they are 20th out of 32 schools, which is actually perfect. Now pay attention, even with that big win, they're still seen as losers. Lewin knows they need a legendary, crushing victory to prove themselves to the world once and for all. Strang grins, totally getting the plan. Lewin looks up, adding they must also prove their worth to the Magic King himself. Meanwhile, inside the High Dome, a vital meeting begins. Through a glowing crystal ball, the Flame King, Terran, watches the rivalry heat up. He remembers that Ardell was once a candidate among the 11 human children. Born with crazy talent, the kid could control mana naturally as a young child, which makes his sudden magic disorder all the more tragic and disappointing. An Ignite leader fires back, asking if Terran wasn't the one who threw the boy away as garbage. The white-haired king just chuckles softly at the bold accusation. He thinks choosing Lewin is a terrible mistake with absolutely zero strategy. The Ignite rep just closes his eyes, full of confidence, telling Terran to sit back and watch. Strang asks about his strategy, knowing he must close the gap on Seda fast. Lewin simply says he'll fight his own way, standing tall and giving it everything. The referee is about to start the match. The second it begins, Lewin charges instantly. With mana surging in his hands, Seda snarls that he will pay, summoning a massive battle guardian. The armored monster blocks Lewin's path, but Lewin triggers his time refraction skill, casually dodging. In a flash, he is behind Seda, who is left looking around in pure panic. Seda throws up a desperate guard, but Lewin casually catches his fist. Grinning, Lewin squeezes hard, whispering, "I knew you would do that." Shaking with rage, Seda demands to be let go. Lewin just chuckles, "You might want to reconsider. Your own giant guardian is charging us with its spear aimed right at you." Sweat pours down Seda's face as he screams, "Stop." But the sharp spear is inches away. To his absolute horror, Lewin's iron grip keeps him frozen in place. Flashbacks of his brutal defeat in the dorms flood Seda's mind. Realizing Lewin is on a whole different level, Seda closes his eyes and accepts his defeat. He braces for impact, but nothing happens. Peeking open an eye, Lewin has just vaporized the giant with a fiery punch. Trust me, we are all going to love seeing what comes next. Alright, you and I are about to watch the ultimate showdown as Lewin literally punches an iron guardian to pieces. As the summoned beast crumbles, a shocked Seda collapses, watching Lewin close the distance. Staring up from the dirt, Seda stammered, asking if Lewin just saved his life. Lewin scoffed. Why on earth would he rescue someone who dared to lay a hand on his beloved classmates? Truth was, Lewin wanted the satisfaction of finishing this himself. With a mischievous glint in his eyes, he asked if Seda forgot their little wager. Ready for a simple flick? The moment Lewin flicked his forehead, Seda blasted off like a leaf caught in a hurricane. Soaring high, he vaguely realized how beautiful and blue the sky was, right before the stadium exploded in cheers. Spectators stood jaw-dropped, while Ignite Academy erupted as if they had already won the whole tournament. Everyone was chanting Lewin's name, but this insane show of power caught the attention of someone far more dangerous. An elite frontier wizard watched in complete disbelief. Even as a legendary 8-star mage revered like a demigod, he had never seen anything like this. Staring intensely through his crystal ball, his wide, shocked eyes revealed his utter disbelief. Who was this mysterious kid? Burning with intense curiosity, the old wizard desperately wanted to know the truth behind Lewin Ardell. Meanwhile, a toxic mix of curiosity and anger gripped the king. He demanded Ignat reveal everything about the boy. The lord simply bowed his head, keeping quiet for a long, tense moment. Ignat explained that Lewin was once the most average student alive, a kid everyone expected to fail. Yet, he somehow turned his fatal weaknesses into absolute, unstoppable power. That was all Ignat knew for now. Standing up, the king chuckled, knowing Tyrion was only trying to shield the talented boy from the royal court's dangerous curiosity. The king mused about summoning Lewin for a personal chat. Ignat stood up, coldly warning that if the king pushed too hard, he would be forced to stop him, whatever the cost. This only made the king smirk with sarcasm. He mocked the sacred wizard oath to protect secrets, confidently concluding he would have absolutely no trouble getting a few words out of the young prodigy. Ignat resolved to uncover the truth behind Lewin Ardell's bizarre magical abilities. Meanwhile, far away at the Drink and Die tavern, an exhausted Lewin was clutching his throbbing head. Now look at this contrast. Lewin groaned that they should be training for the next round instead of partying like crazy, but Jason slapped his back, telling him to celebrate their epic first win. It was a festival, after all, with vanilla coconut juice and the infamous dragon kiss ready to pour. Staring at the glowing bottle, Lewin curiously asked what it was. Showing off the label, Jason hyped it up as a local specialty. One sip, and it feels like kissing a dragon. He promised just one gulp would deliver some truly mind-blowing sensations. But their chat shattered when Lewin spotted someone standing at the entrance. It was Seta, looking like a totally lost puppy. The entire Ignite crew went dead silent at his presence. Jason stepped up, telling Seta he knew his pride was hurt, but politely asked him to leave their party. Lewin watched closely, wondering if this bald rival was actually looking for a round two. To their complete shock, Seta calmly announced he came to apologize. He sincerely asked for forgiveness for underestimating their school and looking down on them for so long. Losing to Luan made him realize how foolish he had been. The world was full of monsters, and he had made major mistakes. Jason stood there, utterly baffled by this sudden transformation. Finishing his speech, Seta bowed deeply to show his respect. Lewin stared back, completely speechless, while the other students felt an incredibly awkward tension hanging over the table. Apologizing for ruining the party mood, the Yoda student turned to walk away. But Lewin suddenly called him back, asking a heavy question. Was this apology just about their bet, or did it truly come from his heart? Seta looked him in the eye and confirmed it was genuine, which put a warm smile on Lewin's face. Our hero extended his hand, thanking him for apologizing like a real man. Still looking a bit down, Seta clasped his hand and they shared a firm shake. Seeing this, the Ignite Academy students welcomed Seta into the group to join the fun. Just like that, everyone was laughing, hugging, and drinking. But trust me, you and I know that when things go this well, a disastrous morning is always waiting. Sure enough, the next morning, Lewin woke up to his first ever brutal hangover. His classmates burst out laughing, teasingly asking if that dragon kiss gave him total amnesia. Apparently, Lewin spent the night crying, thanking everyone for believing in him. To think the flawless Lewin had such an embarrassing side. Absolutely mortified, he quickly bolted from the room. That drink was a shortcut to emotional disaster, and Lewin swore to never touch it again. But as he walked out, Seta appeared, grinning ear to ear, asking if he slept well. Cringe memories flooded Lewin's mind, and he was shocked to see his bald rival wasn't embarrassed at all. Speeding down the hallway, our hero just wanted this entire nightmare to end. Suddenly, he bumped into Professor Heidel. The master chuckled, noting that trouble and wild incidents always seemed to follow Lewin around. Lewin asked if he knew something, but the professor shook his head. He revealed a powerful figure, wanted a word with him. Even the dean was terrified, calling this masked individual incredibly dangerous. The man was none other than the Blazing King, Terran. Professor Heidel warned him to be extremely careful, because mysterious leaders who hoard deep secrets are always the most lethal. Apologizing, Heidel said that was all he could share for now. He promised to explain more after today's matches. Meanwhile, Lewin's squad was incredibly hyped that the king noticed him. Lewin declared they had a fresh reason to win and immediately revealed his strategy. Operation Defend, which you can basically boil down to Lewin sprinting like a madman straight for the goal. In Arrow Ball, magical projectiles fly wildly across the stadium. The 9 team members split into attackers, defenders, and a keeper, aiming to sink the most shots into the enemy's net to win. Despite simple rules, it requires high-level tactics. Players must perfectly time defensive spells, apply crowd control magic, and find the perfect angle to hurl the magical balls into the opponent's net. It is a chaotic, high-energy sport where things get loud fast. Charging straight ahead at maximum speed, Lewin ignored two enemy defenders who slammed down massive frost magic to block his path. But on the offensive, our hero instantly conjured a massive firewall spell. Ice and sealing magic could not slow him down. Up in the stands, Seta cheered frantically for his new buddy. His classmates mocked him for getting so cozy with the Ignite squad. But Seta proudly declared that real men become brothers after a fight. A classmate pointed out there was no real fight, but Malieri silenced him with a terrifying glare before he could mention Seta got utterly thrashed. Malieri knew it was smarter to keep quiet and avoid upsetting Lewin. After facing him, he was absolutely convinced that Lewin was part of an elite, terrifying new generation of wizards. Alongside monsters like Irene, Dalian, and Droom Prime, this generation is stacked. But somehow, young Lewin is outshining every single one of them. Lewin was not just monstrously strong, but also possessed natural leadership and a huge heart, making Seta proud to call him a friend. But with Yoda up next, they had to start planning. The opposing captain screamed at his squad to halt Ardell. Their defenders threw everything they had, but Lewin kept weaving and dodging through their ranks before accelerating into an absolute sprint. Getting right in their faces, he coldly asked if they were finished, declaring it was his turn. Suddenly, a colossal wall of solid ice erupted directly between him and the goal. Gritting his teeth, Lewin winds up a powerful punch. Trust me, you and I are about to see him shatter this ice. Stick with me here. We are jumping right back into the action where shards of ice fly at the defenders dodging for their lives. James grabs the arrow, wondering if they only care about Lewin, leaving the panicked opponents completely terrified. With a massive thrust, the blonde player launches the arrow straight into the goal. Boom! The scoreboard ticks up, giving the Ignites another point. Even down by 2, the desperate opponents refuse to leave Lewin's side. Jason and his crew instantly exploit these massive gaps since the enemies are too distracted to block them. Their defense shattered in a second. Up in the stands, the crowd is losing their minds. The rival team is cornered and literally giving up, which is crazy because these matches usually only see 3 or 4 goals total. But Ignite Academy had already crushed them 11-0 before the surrender. Talk about an absolute overwhelming victory for Lewin's school. The losers walk off in shame, finally realizing Lewin wasn't bluffing about being a champion. The Academy's morale is through the roof, but their celebration is suddenly cut short by a mysterious voice. It is Professor Heil stepping into the room. He announces that the big meeting is set for 7 in the evening over dinner. Sipping his wine, a mysterious figure stares out the window, hoping Lewin arrives with an empty stomach. Our main character heads over to the rendezvous. Ignite spots him and points to the correct door. Lewin greets his master, and they step inside. Stepping through a glowing purple portal, they land in an entirely different dimension. A voice welcomes Lewin as he enters, and the sheer, overwhelming mana radiating from the man makes Lewin wonder if he is facing a dragon. In reality, this man is a legendary mage standing between humanity and godhood, the famous, mysterious Flaming King, Terran. And man, look at that massive feast waiting for them on the table. An absolute banquet. While cutting his steak, Terran admits he actually knows a lot more about Lewin than the boy thinks. He reveals he caught a glimpse of him 5 years ago while searching for the 11th child. Now pay attention, because here is where the mystery deepens. Terran skips the small talk and demands to know exactly what Lewin has been doing all these years. Lewin realizes his very presence proves this legendary mage made a massive mistake. Now, Terran desperately wants our hero to tell him his past judgment was actually correct. Keeping his cool, the young man offers only one answer to the King of Mages. Terran smiles, curious to hear it. Lewin calmly states that while his talent might be lacking, his effort certainly is not. Amused, the legendary mage chuckles at the word effort. He notes that student and master are exactly alike, since Ignite always uses that same word. Then, Terran asks what kind of training he actually did. Mockingly, the mage questions if anyone could genuinely train hard enough to outmuscle an ogre and cast instant magic. He wonders if it is some secret artifact instead, even though he has never heard of such a thing. Luckily, Ignite cuts in, suggesting they end the chat right there. Terran agrees, noting there will be plenty of future competitions anyway. He promises to watch the boys' every move, testing if that effort can stand against his own chosen disciples. Smiling, Lewin welcomes the challenge and tells him to keep watching. Standing up, our hero throws a jab back, asking how different those chosen disciples actually are from him. Boom. Terran's eyes instantly lock onto him, sensing a direct, fearless challenge. Meanwhile, the stadium is completely packed with screaming fans. Outside, Ignite thanks the King of Mages, admitting he was surprisingly polite during the dinner. Terran laughs, asking if Ignite thought he was going to eat the kid alive. He says there was no need to worry since he always treats prodigies well. He was just curious. Ignite then asks if that curiosity was satisfied. Terran admits the boy kept his secrets tight, leaving him hanging. But a new curiosity is burning now. That bold little brat actually had the nerve to throw a subtle warning his way. Ignite begs Terran to cut the kid some slack, since he is still so young. Surprisingly, the boy did not flinch before the legendary mage, while grown men usually beg and grovel at his feet. That makes him incredibly fascinating, and it actually makes Terran wish his own adoptive child had a bit of that fire. Suddenly, the arena stands erupt into deafening cheers. Everyone is screaming for doom, but the cold prodigy looks completely bored, finding the crowd's praise meaningless. Suddenly, a breathless student rushes over to deliver some urgent news. He whispers the secret into Doom's ear, leaving the genius shocked. He demands to know if it is true, and the boy swears he saw Ardell heading to the magic tower with his own eyes. You and I can clearly see how much this hurts his pride. Consumed by jealousy, he clenches his fists because the king met with someone else. Doom had watched Lewin's past fights and knew he was a tough opponent with unique magic, but he never really cared because he did not see him as a worthy rival. Still, Terran shouldn't be paying attention to a nobody. As the image of Terran laughing with Lewin flashes in his mind, a loud boom echoes down the hall. Doom punches the wall, consumed by absolute rage. He vows never to forgive Ardell, because he is the only one who deserves the king's approval. Suddenly, the doors swing wide open and our main character walks out, completely stunned by who is waiting. Standing right there is the legendary Doom Prime, glaring at him with pure hatred. Without wasting a single second, Doom demands to know what kind of secret meeting he just had with the king. Shocked, Lewin asks if he was seriously waiting out here just for that. Doom ignores him, growling for an answer, but Lewin snaps back, asking why on earth he should tell him anything. Doom slowly starts drawing his sword, declaring he has no reason, but he wants to know anyway. Disbelieving, Lewin stares at him, wondering if this guy is actually trying to pick a fight right now. He asks Doom if he really expects them to brawl out here in the hallway, far from the arena. Cold and unfazed, Doom replies that if it comes to that, he is more than ready. The tension is thick enough to choke on. The air in the narrow corridor turns incredibly cold. Prime is a true monster. Lewin cannot spot a single opening, making it hard to believe Doom is brave enough to draw his weapon out here. The blade is halfway out when a sudden voice commands them to stop. It is Irene Prowse stepping in to break up the fight. The young woman chuckles, remarking that it looks like they are having some secret meeting. Seeing everyone together, Lewin mutters that there is no meeting, though he wanted to set up a friendly welcome. But the scowling prodigy just ignores them both, turns around, and walks away. Lewin asks if Doom is always this incredibly sensitive. Irene explains that normally he is so quiet you barely hear his voice, but today is a major exception. Doom Prime loses his mind whenever King Terran is involved, doing absolutely anything for his approval. He probably got furious, thinking Lewin was receiving some kind of special treatment. The girl smiles warmly, asking if Lewin was actually prepared to throw hands. Lewin denies it, believing Doom was just trying to scare him since a real fight would get them both disqualified. Teasingly, Irene asks if it worked and if he got scared. Honestly, Prime is like a massive brick wall, not easily broken by any normal attack. But Lewin believes that no matter how thick the wall is, continuous strikes will eventually shatter it. Irene bursts out laughing, calling him a total weirdo. Either way, he needs to stay careful because Doom Prime has zero mercy, and his eyes will be locked on Lewin. Later, in the dorms, Jason is complaining nonstop in utter disappointment. Lewin reassures them, while Hanks notes a fourth-place tie without their star is a miracle. And that is where we leave it, trust me. Things are only getting wilder. Alright, you and I are about to watch these underdogs show their ultimate defiance against the massive global academy. With the solo matches starting, Hankus wanted to know our hero's move. Smirking, the team captain confidently promised an absolute victory. Taking a casual sip of his hot chocolate, Lewin made it clear that taking first place was his only goal. Lewin was currently tied for the top spot. But with beasts like Irene, Cherky, Dillian, and Doom in play, it was anyone's game. Now, 32 elite students were heading to an artificial island for the brutal battle of survival. First place gets 32 points while dead last gets a single pity point. With rankings fully based on score, this match will completely flip the leaderboard. Hankus knew Lewin had the skills, but wondered why he was not preparing like the others. After all, the other students were already busy forming powerful alliances. Teaming up was not just allowed, it was a highly smart strategy. Faced with massive, organized squads trying to play solo meant certain doom for our main character. Hankus urged him to find a strong teammate. One specific girl instantly came to Lewin's mind, but there was absolutely no guarantee she would actually want to join him. While Lewin was plotting, Seta suddenly showed up with an alliance offer. Lewin had briefly forgotten how insanely strong Seta actually was. Sealing the deal with a promise of zero betrayal, the two quickly rushed off to recruit. Seta was incredibly trustworthy, making him the perfect wingman, but they had to move fast. There was still one final powerhouse they needed on their squad. When they arrived, a crowd was whispering about a girl who rejected absolutely everyone. A beautiful floral crest swayed gently nearby. Seta gasped in pure shock when he realized this elite recruit was Lewin's target all along. Seta was totally stunned. We both know how insanely strong Irene is. He immediately started hyping up their dream alliance, but Lewin warned him to chill, since they hadn't even popped the question yet. Every single suitor had been brutally shot down, making this feel like some nervous love confession. But the moment the door swung open, Irene coldly told them to shut up. She was already smirking at their antics, inviting them in to draft their game plan. Just like that, this newly minted powerhouse trio started mapping out their strategy. Lewin warned that the largest threat would be a massive 14-man army. Leading them was Dalian Malsin, a top 5 genius who specialized in devastating light and holy magic. Seta figured Dalian would be their absolute worst nightmare. But our main character pointed out another lethal threat, Doom Prime, a monster who was now holding a massive personal grudge against him. The trials ahead would adapt based on how well each student fought. Far in the distance, a massive airship sliced through the clouds. An instructor called out to check their gear. The moment a student's armor durability hit 0, they would be instantly teleported out and disqualified. The massive ship hovered over the combat zone as the competitors lined up to drop. Poor Seta was already shaking in his boots before even hitting the ground. The goal was simple: survive 72 grueling hours. Everyone steered completely clear of Doom Prime, whose suffocating aura screamed danger. He was a lone wolf, and easily one of the deadliest threats. To begin, they boarded a small boat heading to the main battleground. Passing through a glowing blue portal, the squad was instantly warped into a hostile new environment. An encroaching barrier would constantly shrink the safe zone, forcing them to find cover fast. Surrounding them was a massive, untamed jungle filled with towering trees and hidden dangers. Just a few minutes in, and one of them is already starving. Not trying to question Lewin's leadership, but our bald friend complained they should have swiped some of that delicious entrance food. Irene teased him, reminding him he wanted to ambush opponents first. But before they could bicker further, a deafening blast tore through the forest right next to them. Seta wondered if the clash had already begun. But here is the part you and I need to watch. Forget hunting for food because their prey just walked right under them. Down below, a clueless squad of students was marching through the thick brush. One complained about carrying heavy rations, completely unaware that they were being watched from above. Suddenly, a piercing blue energy beam zipped through the air, hitting a heavily loaded student dead on. Panic erupted instantly as they realized they were under a surprise attack. Charging his magic, Seta yelled that he had been waiting for this moment, launching a barrage of iron spears. Right beside him, Irene was already conjuring a massive glowing orb of pure mana, that is 5th level ice magic. A devastating sub-zero blizzard roared toward their targets. As expected of a genius, Irene did not even blink while summoning such absolute destruction. Mid-cast, Seta spotted an incoming counterattack. The targets realized they were being ambushed by a 3-man squad, with the legendary Irene leading the assault. They tried to dig in, shielding against the onslaught. These opponents were elite representatives too, so they were not going down easy. Seeing the struggle, our main character decided it was time to join the fray. The rustle of Lewin dropping from the trees immediately gave him away. One defender whipped around, launching a destructive spell right at the bushes, while shouting that the enemy was hiding right there. But our hero easily slipped past the blast. Activating his broken time refraction skill, moving like a ghost, he slipped through their ranks and delivered a brutal, gut-wrenching kick to one mage. Another opponent tried to bind him, but Lewin countered with a massive, roaring fireball. Recognizing the insane mana density, the enemies scattered in absolute terror. As one tried to escape, the ground beneath him shattered. Seta gave Lewin the green light to finish it. Instantly, our hero materialized right behind the runner, charging a deadly energy sphere. The resulting blast was so massive it lit up the entire forest. The poor target took the full force of the attack, dropping instantly into unconsciousness. Within seconds, a strange spatial distortion enveloped him, warping his defeated body out of the arena. His remaining allies watched in horror as their 4-on-3 advantage completely vanished. Paralyzed by fear, the last standing defender surrendered on the spot. This meant our trio had just scored a massive jackpot of supplies, including fresh fruit and plenty of meat. This massive haul was more than enough to sustain our heroes for 3 full days. Suddenly, a distant explosion startled Seda, echoing from the exact direction Dalian's massive group was heading. Clashing with a 10-man army was pure suicide. This area was a perfect natural bottleneck, and surviving it required the kind of monstrous magical output that normal mages could only dream of. The bald fighter was amazed by how much Lewin had grown over the past year, but Lewin's mind was completely focused on the terrifying threat of Doom Prime. As evening fell, a rusty door creaked open. Warm sunset light flooded the empty hideout. Seeing no signs of enemy activity, the guys finally let their guard down, taking a moment to stretch and catch their breath. Seda wanted to cook, but a campfire would give away their position, so they opted for dry rations. Irene then asked Lewin how he managed to predict literally every single event. During their strategy meeting, they figured the central ruins were the only spot large enough to house a massive army. Dalian's army and the terrifying Doom Prime were both marching to the same spot. Irene asked if Lewin was being suicidal by jumping straight into a massive free-for-all, but Lewin knew this was his best shot at winning. Just hunt down every single opponent. And trust me, you and I are about to see this solo madman completely shatter the entire scoreboard. Let's dive into this epic recap where our main character, Lewin, explains he just predicted his rival's reckless moves. Stick with me, because this tactical showdown is about to get absolutely wild. Irene scratching her chin, finding Lewin's intuition pretty strange. Still, the trio decides to take turns keeping watch. Soon, night falls, and a brilliant full moon lights up the sky. As Lewin sleeps, a whisper calls out his name. Irene warns him that someone is outside. Peering through the window, Lewin spots a mysterious hooded figure lurking in the darkness. Irene notes it is only one lone intruder who seems totally clueless about their presence inside. But Lewin senses something is off. He tells Irene to wake Seda immediately while he stands guard right at the entrance. The midnight visitor slowly creeps across the grass, heading straight for the front door. Crouching low in the shadows, our hero waits, ready to strike the moment they enter. Since it is a solo intruder, Lewin has a strong hunch who it is. The door creaks open, and the visitor steps inside, completely unaware that our protagonist is hiding right behind them. Boom! Lewin grabs the intruder's hood and slams him to the floor, instantly throwing him off balance. Before the guy can even scream, Lewin covers his mouth to keep things completely quiet. Irene quickly casts her light magic to illuminate the room. Seda instantly recognizes the captive. It is actually another Academy representative named Callus. The intruder apologizes, claiming he did not know anyone was living here. Lewin asks if he is alone, which Callus confirms. But then, Lewin drops a serious question. What happened to the other 6 members of your squad? The boy utters just 2 words, but it is enough to explain the horror. Doom Prime. Their entire group had marched straight into a deadly trap. Their massive squad had planned to ambush Malcolin's team for some easy points. But out of nowhere, Doom Prime appeared, turning the hunters into the hunted. Hearing the explosion, Dalian led a ruthless assault. Callus and his crew fought back desperately, but only 2 of them managed to escape. Bleeding and exhausted, they limped into the dark forest. Now, pay attention here, because Doom Prime suddenly reappeared. He was lurking in the shadows, waiting to hunt down the weak survivors. He masterfully used the chaos to his advantage. Yet, Callus boldly asks if he can join their team. Seda thinks it is a solid idea, but Lewin immediately shuts him down. No hesitation. He demands to know how Callus escaped. Facing a beast like Doom Prime while wounded, there is absolutely no way anyone survives that. Irene and Seda exchange worried looks, realizing Lewin is onto something big. Only 3 possibilities make sense here. First, Callus is lying. Second, Doom Prime let him go. Or third, they are being watched. Lewin activates his player eye skill, only to find 0 data on Callus. This confirms his worst fear. This guy is an imposter. As an owl flies off, Lewin throws a devastating punch. But the moment it connects, the fake Callus vanishes into thin air. Lewin yells to his allies, warning them that they must move immediately. As a new dawn rises over the island, the trio tries to figure out this creepy clone mystery. Was the real Callus killed and replaced by a double? Irene has a strong hunch. She suspects a mage named Turkey. He is an elite student from Delaniac Magic School, famous for creating flawless clone copies. This terrifying realization means Malcolin's crew has them completely surrounded, with enemies lurking on all sides. With their location compromised, they could be ambushed any second. Even worse, the shrinking barrier is closing in from the west. It is time to use their enemies' own tricks against them. The heroes draw up a brilliant plan to turn their enemies against each other. Meanwhile, in the shadows, a voice asks Turkey if he has located their targets. Turkey laughs, reporting that they are running like rats in the west. He almost fooled them, but they figured it out. Dalian is shocked, wondering how the copy failed. I know what you were thinking. How did he get caught? Well, Lewin was just too fast. Now Turkey asks what their next move is against those three powerful mages. Dalian's eyes flash with malice. The plan is simple. Capture them using full force. Inside the dense forest, the enemy mages march in formation, ready for a fight. Dalian expects to reach the base soon, but a massive pillar of light suddenly explodes right in front of them. A wild battle has started, and Ardell must be right in the middle of it. Taking the chance, they charge forward and spot three silhouettes. Someone screams warning of an ambush. The blonde mage fires a divine arrow, only to realize the target is not Lewin at all. Boom! A massive golden explosion illuminates the entire forest. But in reality, our three heroes are safely hiding high up in the trees. Everything goes exactly as planned. The enemies rush right into the trap. Seta laughs as Irene asks what is next, and Lewin grins, saying it is time to harvest some points. Dalian and his squad are completely blindsided. Lewin drops from the sky, covered in roaring fire magic. The blonde mage freezes, completely helpless against the incoming strike. Irene observes the enemy, realizing their squad's size is heavily reduced. They definitely must have run into Doom Prime earlier today. Looking around, they spot a group of terrified mages. Maybe a temporary alliance is smart here. Suddenly, one enemy charges, shouting that they will not back down against 6 opponents. The boy blitzes forward like an arrow, unleashing crazy intensity. But suddenly, he loses control, his face twisting in agony as he bursts into roaring fire. A massive fiery explosion engulfs the mages on the battlefield. Dalian is absolutely terrified. A ridiculous power display like this is simply unheard of. Lewin immediately realizes this is the work of Doom Prime. Right on cue, the monster himself appears in a flash of blue energy, his sword slicing through bodies like butter. Seta points out that Doom Prime is actually helping them clear the field. Lewin notes that the monster seems focused on wiping out Dalian's group first. Dalian's team panics, screaming in absolute terror as to why Doom Prime is targeting only them. Knowing he cannot stand around, Lewin activates his temporal refraction skill. He blitzes through the battlefield like the wind, delivering a rapid barrage of strikes. Channeling his power, he slams a devastating punch into the ground, causing a massive earthquake. As the smoke clears, Lewin sees dozens of enemies completely wiped out. Standing right in front of him is the menacing Doom Prime. Doom Prime walks right past him without attacking, but whispers his name, promising to crush him later. He then resumes slaughtering the remaining mages, leaving Lewin to sigh in disbelief. Meanwhile, in the host room, only 10 competitors remain. Terran is excited to see the final results, especially since Lewin claimed he would outperform all the other top prodigies. Smiling slyly, Terran wonders if Lewin can actually defeat that monster. Later on, we find our hero training peacefully outside their cozy hideout. The group safely sets up camp at Base B near the center of the island. After that chaotic fight, only Dalian and Turkey survived, while the rest vanished with Doom Prime. Suddenly, a quest completion notification pops up as Irene walks outside. That is where we leave it. You and I definitely need to see what comes next. Alright, you and I are diving back into this story. Lewin jokes about his body itching from doing nothing, but when Seta serves up dinner, one bite of the meat completely blows Irene's mind. The steak is pure heaven. Seta is an absolute genius in the kitchen. Irene quickly apologizes for passing out the day before, explaining she was just too exhausted to say a word. Lewin pours some warm tea. Irene hesitates before asking a question that has been on her mind. What are his plans after graduation? She is really curious, especially now that they have become so close. See, once graduates leave this competition, they enter the real world. Most either join a knight order to protect territories or become official members of a powerful magic tower. Some join mercenary groups for quick cash. Those are the normal paths, but Lewin is not so sure. He honestly admits he has not given his future much thought at all. Before this, he was just a broke student scraping by. Planning for the future was a luxury. He figures he will have a better idea once this tournament wraps up. When Lewin asks her the same question, Irene freezes. She admits she never had the time to figure out what kind of mage she actually wanted to become. She just followed everyone else's advice. But as she sips her tea, a sudden realization hits her. She firmly declares she wants to fight Doom Prime first. She needs this fight to find her own path as a mage. Hearing this, Lewin gets dead serious. This showdown against Prime is going to be intense. For years, Prime was her ultimate obstacle. Lewin respects her drive and accepts the challenge. After all, everyone has their own personal battles to fight. Night falls as the moon shines over the forest. Time is running out. The barrier is shrinking fast, forcing them to move. Their only safe zones are the village and their base. But Prime is likely waiting to ambush them. If they hesitate and wait for others to fight, the shrinking barrier will trap them. Seta wants to rush straight in, but Irene warns against attracting attention. That is when Lewin grins and says he has a plan. With so few fighters left, every rank up grants massive points. Pay attention here because Lewin knows exactly how to exploit this final stage of the game. This is the perfect moment to strike Doom Prime. His rivals are hiding, and since Prime is ridiculously overconfident, he is bound to show up the moment they bait him. Irene wonders how they will even track him down. Lewin just smirks confidently. "Leave it to me," he says, "because Prime will come to us." Moving like a shadow, Lewin speeds through the dark forest. Strang asks how he expects to find Prime with just a mini-map. Lewin explains that while it lacks exact locations, it tracks player counts in each base. If there are 2 dots, it is just other survivors grouping up. But a single, lonely dot? That is absolutely Doom Prime. Lewin reaches a cabin deep in the woods. He walks up to the door and boldly calls Prime out. Boom. A crimson explosion blows the door to pieces, and a dark figure steps out. Glaring with eyes burning with pure rage, Prime stares down Lewin. Lewin casually asks if he slept well, telling him they need to go. Meanwhile, Seta is sweating bullets. When Seta sees Lewin leading Prime, he freaks out, asking if Lewin got captured. Lewin just laughs it off. Prime asks if this was an ambush, but Lewin says he never planned on that. Lewin points to Irene and drops a bombshell. Prime's opponent isn't him, it is Irene. Seta stands there, completely shell-shocked by the sudden announcement. Doom Prime crosses his arms, looking down at them. He scoffingly declares that the girl stands absolutely zero chance against him. He says knocking her out now would disappoint the Flame King, so she should run and rank up. But Irene steps up. That is not her goal. Her only objective right now is to crush her ultimate rival. Flashbacks show just how terrified Irene gets about losing to Prime every single year. It is tied to her family, a heavy burden she keeps locked deep inside. But now, she has finally conquered that fear. We are about to see if she's truly ready. Lewin watches as she unleashes her magic. Trembling with sweat, she channels her mana and unleashes a massive ice storm. Prime quickly takes a defensive stance as the freezing blast hurtles right towards him. The impact triggers a blinding blue light that swallows the entire battlefield. But Irene's face instantly pales as she senses her magic being consumed like a star in a black hole. Prime's counterspell explodes outward. The defensive dome shatters into thousands of flying shards, revealing Doom Prime standing completely untouched behind the wreckage. Prime is unhurt but clearly annoyed. Sweat pours down Irene's face as the pressure mounts. A worried Seta asks Lewin if they should really just stand by and watch. Lewin is uneasy too. Charging forward with absolute force, Prime readies a deadly sword strike while unleashing a massive fire spell directly at Irene. Irene is trapped, unable to dodge. Breaking their promise, Lewin leaps right in front of the flames. He only agreed to let her attack first, not let Prime kill her. He cannot afford to lose such a vital ally. Lewin steps forward, points his blade, and challenges Prime to a real fight. Prime mocks Lewin, asking if he will fight alone or bring that musclehead Seta along. Lewin confidently answers he will do this solo, as 2 against 1 would be unfair. Lewin remembers the training on how to counter swordsmen. A knight's legs are everything. They provide power and reveal exactly where the next strike will land. The secret is watching the opponent's feet. Lewin locks his gaze onto Prime's stance, waiting for the perfect split-second opening to strike. Lewin ducks under the blade, dodging flawlessly. It is a brilliant move, but Prime's sword suddenly unleashes a wide crimson spell, catching Lewin completely off guard. Prime reminds him he is not just a knight, but a mage too. People think magic swordsmen are a myth, but they just have not met him. Prime relentlessly presses the attack. Lewin barely evades the deadly strikes while Prime taunts him. This is dangerous, uncharted territory for our hero. He has never fought anyone like this. Usually, you beat mages by closing the gap during casting time, but Prime uses his sword to completely eliminate that weakness. Lewin stops to find his footing, only to realize his leg is bleeding. He did not even feel the cut. Prime calls this technique Radiant Impact. The wound will drain Lewin's speed until he is completely paralyzed. Smiling coldly, Prime decides to end the fight as a massive pillar of violet light explodes from the earth. The ground glows with complex magic patterns. Giant black wings erupt from Prime's back as he channels a truly devastating high-tier spell. Irene and Seta gasp in horror, terrified for Lewin's life. This is a five-star spell, the dreaded devastating wings of the demon, unleashing pressure like an actual hurricane. Trees thrash wildly as Irene braces herself. Seta is literally being blown away. Trust me, you're going to want to see what happens next. You and I are about to watch one insane showdown as Prime unleashes pure, cataclysmic destruction. Luckily, our main character, Lewin, ducked behind a massive boulder, realizing why this guy won previous festivals. With his teeth, Lewin rips off a piece of his sleeve to bind his bleeding leg. But just as he tightens the makeshift tourniquet, something unexpected catches his eye. That cheap antique ring on his finger was actually glowing. Meanwhile, standing in a massive crater of absolute ruins, Prime looks down, completely disappointed that Lewin could not handle his power. Stepping out from the dust, Lewin admits his opponent is a total beast. It felt like staring at an unmovable wall. Prime just sneers, asking, "Are you ready to give up?" But giving up is not in Lewin's vocabulary. With everyone's hopes resting on his shoulders, he is ready to smash this wall to pieces. His crazy, stubborn drive makes Prime think he has completely lost his mind. Determined to shut Lewin up for good, Prime prepares to strike. But before he can even take a step, our hero unleashes the terrifying Ghoul's Fury spell. With rage burning in his eyes, Lewin roars, "Watch your mouth, Doom," and charges forward like lightning striking the ground. Prime knows if Lewin takes this next hit, he is dead. Nothing can halt Lewin's iron will now. The two forces collide as both clash with everything they have. Lewin pins all his hopes on that mysterious antique ring, praying it will trigger to block the damage against all odds. Boom! The ring bursts with energy, snapping Prime's blade right in half. Shattered metal flies everywhere as a brutal gash rips open across Doom's shoulder. Pure shock paralyzes Doom as Lewin blitzes right past him. But that stunned silence quickly twists into a loud scream of absolute, blinding rage. Seizing the opening, Lewin sweeps his legs, slamming him hard onto the dirt to finish his combo. Pinning him down, our main character leans in and says, "You never stood a chance, Doom. You are nothing but pride and empty arrogance." With zero time for Doom to react, Lewin charges up a colossal punch and drives it straight into his face like a bolt of lightning. His body glimmers and fades away, instantly teleported out of the arena. Seta exhales a massive sigh of relief, knowing that if Lewin had lost, he would have been the next victim. Now pay attention to this moment. Lewin notices Irene looking completely crushed and steps closer, apologizing for jumping into her fight. But she admits the fault is hers, as her greed almost got the whole team disqualified. She failed her original goal in this tourney, but tells him not to worry since that target is ancient history anyway. Her new target is not Prime anymore. It is Lewin. Smiling, he warns her it won't be easy. She just grins back, telling him to stay ready because she is going to surpass him. Only 5 fighters remain in the forest. Dalian and Turkey put up a fierce fight, but they simply cannot match our legendary trio. A barrage of powerful spells lights up the dark forest as both enemies finally go down. Dalian's form shimmers and fades away, sending him straight out of the tournament arena. Our 3 heroes stand victorious. They are the last ones standing, and Seta is in absolute disbelief. Smiling, Lewin asks if they should settle things with one final battle right now. But Irene decides to forfeit, wanting a rematch when she is back at full strength. Knowing she is completely drained, Lewin gladly agrees to save their battle for another day. Seta speaks up, "My turn. I might be the leader, but I am going all out now." Lewin braces for the impact, but before he can even blink, Seta is already launching himself through the sky. Just like that, Ignite Academy's own Lewin takes first place, as all the students throw a massive feast to celebrate. A familiar voice calls out, teasing him for skipping the dorms. Irene and Seta have arrived to congratulate their friend. She wanted to celebrate his big win, and Seta practically begged her to let him tag along. And let's be honest, you and I knew Lewin would end up standing alone at the absolute top of this brutal survival battle. Doom scored plenty of points, but since he was eliminated early, his rank plummeted below the rest. Meanwhile, Jason is on cloud 9 just sitting at the same table as his crush, Irene Prowse. He figures if things keep going like this, getting close to her is actually possible. Eagerly, he proposes a massive toast to celebrate alongside their gorgeous goddess. She bursts into laughter, and seeing everyone so happy completely warms Lewin's heart. The group keeps drinking and partying until the sun finally sets. Students whisper about Lewin being the new champ, quickly shushing each other so Doom does not hear. Doom is completely broken by this loss. He never expected Lewin to target his weapon instead of going directly for him. He realized the trick too late, swinging his blade in a desperate bid for victory. Losing with the king, watching is a massive blow to his pride. Doom asks his teammate if the king has called for him yet, His friend tells him to just rest, but seeing that Doom wants to be left alone, he decides to respect his wishes. Staring silently into his locker, a dark aura begins to seep from Prime. Meanwhile, the party is rocking. Everyone is convinced a brand new era of mages is rising after Lewin's victory. Watching from above, Dean Ignat takes it all in. He knew Lewin was talented, but never expected him to pull off such an insane victory. To Terran, Lewin's win is a massive insult, especially having to see that brat's smug face in the main arena. The Dean is shocked, asking if the hall is already prepared. With the grand festival wrapping up, a few days have passed since the match. Ignite Academy managed to tie for third, a total miracle for a school once called underdogs. Now, only the final individual matches remain. Our hero is absolutely beaming with confidence. The next stage is a brutal obstacle course testing combat, speed, and swimming skills. Summoning beasts and using teleportation is fully allowed. Seta approaches Lewin, asking how he feels while the entire crowd chants Lewin's name like he is the star of the show. The boy looks back, admitting it feels unreal. Honestly, he would love to just enjoy the hype, but he cannot. No celebrating is allowed until the final trophy is in his hands. Under the blazing sun, the individual tournament finally kicks off. Seta playfully warns Lewin that he has no intention of holding back on his friend today. Pointing his weapon to the sky, the judge barks the order to prepare. With the top fighters locked in, the starting gun cracks, and the race begins. Some dash forward on foot while others summon massive beasts or trigger instant teleportation. The stadium crowd roars with excitement, but a mustached man suddenly notices something weird and points. Lewin is not even running. He is just leaning back, waiting with a highly suspicious smile plastered on his face. Meanwhile, the other contestants kick up dust in a fierce battle to get ahead. Everyone is pushing to their absolute limit. Malcolm runs up to Irene, guessing she must be exhausted, and proposes a temporary alliance, which seems to be his favorite trick. Suddenly, the thundering gallop of a horse echoes from behind. It is Doom Prime with a brand new sword, closing in fast and blasting enemies aside to clear his path. The blonde guy has known Doom for 6 years, but could never break through his cold shell. Doom refuses to team up. His eyes solely focus on the fierce combat ahead. Goblins get torn to shreds, but Prime is only wondering why Lewin hasn't shown up. Stick around, because we're about to see things get even crazier. Or maybe he was already ahead, although Prime refused to believe that was even possible. Having led from the very start, Prime had only spotted 2 other rivals nearby, making him certain this mysterious competitor was still lagging behind. Let's pause here, because you and I can tell things are getting weird. The boy eagerly asks Irene where Lewin is, but she has no clue, realizing everything feels incredibly off. The top mages have been leading for ages, yet nobody else had shown up. Even with a late start, Lewin should have caught up by now, but there was only silence until a sudden, massive explosion caught the boys' attention. Thick smoke billows, completely blocking their view and leaving them clueless. Suddenly, a figure steps right out of the haze. It is Lewin, casually announcing he has finally caught up. Prime stares intensely at the young man the moment he steps forward. A worried Irene immediately asks what happened to all the other racers, and with a smug smile, our hero replies that they are no longer around. The crowd in the stands had been completely baffled by our hero's total lack of movement earlier. But ever since he signed up for this grand festival, Lewin had been waiting for this exact moment. This was the one event he knew he could dominate. Since he's a close combat mage, leaving his back open to long-range snipers was way too risky, so he cooked up a genius plan. After planning his moves carefully, he executed his strategy. Take them out one by one from behind. Creeping up silently, Lewin began closing in on his targets. Slipping past the other racers, he tried to count his takedowns but quickly lost track. His opponent stood 0 chance against his stealth until he approached his friend. Spotting him, Seta asked when he had even arrived. With a slight grin, Lewin asks if his buddy remembers that a game is still a game. The bald fighter sighs, wondering if their endless rivalry is starting all over again. Muttering a quick apology, Lewin lunges forward and kicks Seta's Iron Guardian with insane power, launching it straight into the air. Just like that, Seta is knocked out of the race. Don't blink, because what our main character does next is wild. Irene asks if he wiped out everyone, and Lewin casually nods, noting no intruders remain as his sharp gaze locks onto Prime. The swordsman boldly declares that this showdown will end differently as our hero approaches the final group of racers. Prime admits he would love to duel right here, but points out that other competitors are still hot on their heels. Suddenly, a blazing horse aura erupts around Prime, summoning his epic battle guardian. Wanting to face our hero further down the road, Prime dashes off, leaving the others behind. Dalian warns him that charging ahead is suicide with all the traps waiting. Lewin simply watches his rival speed away with a completely calm face. By now, the castle is packed with dangerous traps protecting the treasure. It is a hazard zone where one wrong step means severe injury. Sure, the safest path is slowly disarming them, making it the perfect test of a mage's wits and survival skills. But disarming traps takes way too long. Lewin considers using Draz's method and just blasting through everything. Unfortunately, shattering a wall as thick as this castle's is almost impossible. Instead, he decides to target the oldest sections. Activating his player's vision, Lewin scans the stone structures until he finally spots a structurally compromised weak point. One of the bricks is ancient and completely decayed. This is his golden opportunity. Preparing a heavy, magic-infused punch, Lewin gets ready to smash his way through. Dalian thinks the move is completely reckless, but Irene smiles, saying it is exactly what she expected. The blonde mage grumbles that being supportive is fine, but this is just absurd. While Dalian doubts our hero's strategy, Irene tells him to shut up and look. The very brick Lewin punched completely shatters, opening a perfect shortcut straight through the solid wall. Stunned, Diane screams in shock while Irene gloats, knowing her friend always has a backup plan. Embarrassed, Diane asks if he can slip through the hole too, but Lewin just smirks and seals the wall right back up. I know what you were thinking. Only 2400 strength to shatter a massive wall? Yeah, it is insane. And now only Lewin and Prime lead the pack. Lewin quickly closes the gap on his rival. Prime made it through, but his rush left him wounded by a trap arrow. Our hero realizes Prime is desperate to win. Right then, Prime's summoned mount starts to vanish. In a pure foot race, Prime stands absolutely zero chance against Lewin. Furious, Prime draws his blade and swings wildly, but Lewin smoothly dodges the strike. Seizing his chance, Lewin grabs Prime by the collar, declaring they will finish this final stretch together. Suddenly, both racers tumble off the cliffside, plunging into the deep water below. Lewin gasps for air as he breaks the surface. Everything is going perfectly. He knew he would be at a massive disadvantage if Prime used high-tier magic to climb that cliff. Lewin starts paddling furiously to get away, but massive chunks of ice begin materializing around him. Prime is using frost magic. Lewin yells at him to stop freezing the lake, warning others might swim here. Within seconds, our hero is completely frozen solid in a block of ice. Prime glides over, asking if he should really worry about others during a race before smirking and leaving him behind. Completely immobilized, Lewin is stuck deep in the ice. To bust out, he begins chanting a powerful fire spell. It works like a charm as the frozen block cracks and shatters apart. Meanwhile, Prime is galloping toward the finish line, confident in his victory. But his jaw drops when he sees Lewin has already caught up. With the stadium right ahead, Lewin just needs pure speed. Pushing his limits, Lewin launches himself into the air. Descending right on top of Prime, he asks if he is ready for a rematch, though Prime knows fighting now is a terrible idea. Landing with a massive boom, Lewin kicks up a blinding cloud of dust. Inside the crowded stadium, the spectators strain their eyes, unable to see who has taken the lead. Suddenly, someone points and screams at the arena entrance. A silhouette of a horse emerges from the dust. It is Prime's battle guardian charging in alone, making the tense crowd realize neither mage has appeared yet. But when the big screen flickers on, Prime is collapsed on the ground with Lewin standing over him. It looks like Prime pushed his body way past its limits during that trap run. After all, he did say rules and safety do not matter in a race. Leaving his rival defeated and unable to move, Lewin turns toward the finish line, mocking him with his own words. Now, it is time for the big awards ceremony inside the packed stadium. Our hero sweeps the competition, taking home gold for both the survival battle and the triathlon, securing absolute victory overall. As the grand festival ends, the entire arena chants his name. The kid who was once dismissed as a pathetic failure is now crowned the ultimate mage of the new generation. Hearing those cheers touches something deep inside him, proving that all the hell he endured over the last 6 years, the brutal isolation of that dark cave, and his endless, agonizing training had finally paid off. Seeing this massive crowd cheering, his name was the ultimate reward. Standing on the podium, Lewin raises his arms to thank his supporters, hoping this incredible feeling of being acknowledged never fades away. As night falls, high-class carriages arrive carrying elite nobles, since only the wealthiest families were invited to this banquet. They all came just to catch a glimpse of the new hero, but Lewin is completely bored. He just wants to go home until a familiar voice breaks his train of thought. It is Irene, looking absolutely stunning in a gorgeous white gown. She points out how weird it is that nobody is talking to him, but Lewin thinks it is just his aloof vibe and casual clothes keeping them away. And that is where we leave it for now. Why are these power-hungry nobles ignoring Lewin if they want his connection? Trust me, you and I are going to want to see what happens next. Alright, let's jump right into a world where a massive power player is keeping every greedy noble away from our hero. Intriguing, right? But before Irene can explain, an elder announces the banquet is starting. 32 representatives are ushered in, greeted by a table absolutely loaded with delicious food. This feast with the Flame King is lavish enough for an emperor. But don't let the luxury fool you, it is a trap, a brutal student evaluation designed to destroy underperformers. Looking around, Lewin notices a couple of empty VIP seats. He thought only the king was coming, but there are 2 seats of honor. Suddenly, the host announces the main guests are arriving. Everyone stands up in respect. As Terran walks in, the crowd bows, chanting his title, the Lord King of Flames, a title that honestly makes Lewin sick to his stomach. But wait, one mysterious figure completely ignores the formal greetings. Dressed impeccably in a fine hat and sharp formal wear, he casually apologizes for interrupting their dinner. Talk about a power move. Lewin wonders who this guy is, but before he can even guess, everyone in the room bows deeply. He is the Crown Prince. Lewin is completely shocked. Suddenly, the tension at the table skyrockets. The young students are sweating, terrified to even move a muscle, and Lewin stays dead silent. Terran breaks the silence, pointing out that none of the 11 elite students could defeat Lewin even once. He asks if the power gap is really that massive, calling their performance shameful. Trembling with his head lowered, Doom Prime swears he will never show weakness again, muttering that excuses are just the shield of the incompetent. Now look closely at this moment. It is obvious this grand banquet was set up for one reason, to publicly humiliate these 11 young students. Talk about incredibly uncomfortable. And the Flame King is not the only one making Lewin sweat. The new prince has been staring at him intensely since he walked in, sipping his wine with a sharp, piercing gaze. Despite being the 3rd son, this guy used his brilliant mind and sharp political schemes to completely outplay all of his older brothers. He is a literal perfectionist, mastering both academic and martial arts. Irene's warning rings in Lewin's head. This prince is definitely the powerful figure she told him about. Terran asks Lewin how it feels to win the festival. Knowing it is a massive trap, Lewin swallows hard and admits he actually feels uncomfortable, shocking the entire room. Lewin explains that while he is happy he won, he hates being used to put down his fellow students and their hard work. His bold words send shockwaves through the banquet. The vibe instantly changes. Terran's eyes turn sharp as he responds that a little insecurity is just fuel to make the weak grow stronger. To Lewin, it is obvious the king is just trying to spark pure hatred among the students. And honestly, Lewin refuses to let his home be called some tiny, insignificant stream. Ardell is a proud, beautiful land, and his academy is no small pond. The young hero's defiance sparks a very dangerous look in the king's eyes. A suffocating silence takes over the room. The prince smirks, but suddenly breaks the tension by bursting into roaring laughter, leaving Lewin completely on guard. The prince laughs so hard his stomach literally hurts, absolutely loving Lewin's sheer guts, and demands to know where this kid came from. Terran just grins, saying he warned him how fascinating the boy is. Terran replies that he originally thought Ardell was just some tiny, boring backwater, but now, it sounds like a beautiful place he might want to visit. Ingrid lets out a quiet sigh of relief, glad things did not turn bloody. She asks Lewin if he planned to cause another scene, but he just says the prince liked his speech. And since the prince has heard these same idealistic rants from Tyrion before, his mind is not changing anytime soon. Still, Lewin's bold honesty is way more refreshing than the dean's speeches, and the king is genuinely intrigued. With a smirk, he officially brings the feast to an end. But before anyone can leave, the prince stops them. Walking right up to Lewin, he invites him for a private tea, flashing a creepy smile that says refusal is not an option. Shortly after, Lewin and the mysterious prince are alone in a luxurious room. Lewin knows this is definitely not a casual chat just to congratulate him on his big win. Breaking the silence, the prince calls Lewin's name and drops a bomb. He demands Lewin enter his service today, making it clear he will not take no for an answer. He is giving Lewin 1 month to pack before arranging his official transfer and a luxurious new place to live. On top of that, Lewin has to change his citizenship because the future crown prince's top guy cannot be a foreigner. Lewin is confused, asking why the prince needs him when the empire already has elite mages like Doom Prime. But the prince scoffs, reminding him that Doom Prime lost the finals. He snaps, "How dare you ask me to choose a loser? I know what you're thinking, this guy is absolutely intense. He demands simple yeses, not questions." That chilling statement sends a shiver down Lewin's spine. Still, the prince decides to answer his question anyway, explaining that his godfather personally recommended Lewin to him. The prince also loves Luan's insane guts, the balls to act so cocky in front of royalty while everyone else is busy kissing up to the powerful. He loves his nerve to argue with his own godfather, and most of all, the pure audacity to keep asking questions after being warned to stop. In politics, you need someone dangerous and interesting in your corner. The prince wants Luan to protect him from his jealous older brothers, who hate that their youngest sibling snatched the crown. Luan swallows hard, his throat tight as the weight of the request hits him. The prince looks him dead in the eye and asks if he will accept. This is precisely why the prince warned him that refusal is not an option. One of the empire's most powerful rulers is offering Luan the ultimate shortcut to glory and influence. Honestly, most mages end up selling out to some noble eventually. If Luan walks away from this offer, he might end up regretting it forever. But Luan refuses to be anyone's puppet. He still has way too many things to achieve. The prince thought Luan was a pragmatist, but he is proving to be a stubborn idealist, throwing away a priceless chance. And yet, Luan has the balls to turn him down this simple. Perhaps. As our hero stands to leave, the prince coldly tells him to forget this chat. He reminds Luan that everyone is calling him the brightest jewel of the academy. But the prince collects jewels and any prize he cannot own? Well, he simply shatters it into dust. Ignoring the chilling threat, Luan turns his back on one of the empire's absolute rulers and walks out. Later, we see him leaning against a stone pillar, deeply lost in thought. Those final words were definitely a death threat, and Luan wonders if he just sealed his own doom. Suddenly, two of his closest friends pop up and greet him. Jason teases him, asking where he disappeared to and if he was on a secret date. Meanwhile, back in his chamber, the prince admits he is completely fascinated by his godfather's recommendation. Their talk was useless, and even a death threat failed. Tyrion asks if he'll give up, but trust me, you and I know this prince is not backing down. Alright, you and I are diving straight into a world where a greedy prince has already targeted our main character, Luan Ardell. But as the sun sets, our hero is busy pushing his limits with his daily training routine. Through pure willpower, he crushes another brutal training session. As he collapses onto the grass exhausted, Strang points out that his physical condition is improving at a scary pace. But Luan snaps back, saying he does not want compliments from a guy. That is when the little bear drops a bomb, claiming she is actually female. Shocked, Luan sits up and asks how a spiritual incarnation even has a gender. The tiny creature shrugs, saying she was just born this way, and there is no rule against it. Besides, the young man had simply never bothered to ask. They end up washing up together. Though Strang jokes, there is nothing to look at anyway. Realizing she definitely peaked, Luan starts to get annoyed, but his anger quickly softens into a playful smirk. He stands up, saying he is leaving first and banishing the bear for making such cheap jokes. Suddenly, we transition to the bustling train station where academy students are boarding their locomotive. Jason gives his buddy a dramatic, tearful goodbye, but Luan tells him to relax since nobody is dying. As the heavy steam engine starts chugging, our main character watches his friends disappear into the distance. A mysterious guy in a trench coat walks up, saying it is time for them to go. Since Luan won the festival, he must head to Raverdine to fulfill his duties, escorted by a bowl-cut mage named Street Cat. This guy is so incredibly strong that Luan cannot read a single stat with his player gaze skill. This means his bodyguard is easily professor level or beyond. Now, pay attention here, because before anything else, Luan must report straight to the Imperial Palace to receive his royal congratulations. But the guy speaks so incredibly stiffly that Luan politely asks him to relax since he is only 16 years old. Street Cat immediately fires back, saying he is already perfectly comfortable. Luan realizes this guard is a total professional. Once they leave the palace, Luan will head to the magic tower to be chosen by a legendary artifact. There is a catch though, the choice is entirely up to the weapon itself. This makes Luan wonder if these relics have minds of their own, just like Kingram. After that, he gets his mission. Regular students do not get official missions, but champions are different. Luan realizes this is basically his trial of adulthood. He is handed a list of various tasks to choose from, but suddenly Strang leans in and whispers a secret. Hearing this, Luan scans the list with a sharp eye and selects a very specific option. Shortly after, a massive, breathtaking castle looms over the mountain peak. This is the Crown Prince's palace, and they are all waiting for him. Street Cat suddenly says goodbye and prepares to leave. Luan asks if he is coming inside, but it is too late. The giant doors slowly creak open, revealing the ambitious Crown Prince himself. With a smug look, the prince welcomes Luan to his grand empire. Completely speechless, Luan stands there. To start things off, the ruler hands him 10,000 gold coins. The prince, Reach, clearly has not given up on recruiting him, promising that the palace doors will always remain open. With that done, Lewin heads to his next objective. Just walking through these endless, massive corridors is completely exhausting. Street Cat ignores Lewin's casual complaints, reminding him that Lord Topshoe is waiting. Lewin realizes these palace officials have absolutely zero sense of humor. You and I both know Lewin does not back down. When his guard asks if he is sure about this choice, Lewin firmly confirms it. Street Cat realizes the kid just picked the absolute hardest mission as the doors swing open. A powerful figure sits in the shadows of the room. It is Terran, who welcomes him in. Over hot tea, Terran questions why Lewin chose a search mission when a simple hunting task would be much easier. He could easily team up with the Imperial Knights, wipe out some weak bandits, and instantly become a celebrated hero. Terran simply cannot understand why Lewin wants to visit a barren wasteland. But Lewin recalls Strang's advice. This place is critical because it was Kingram's ancient homeland. Even more important, it is the exact location where Draco lived for 100 years. Sky Mountain, a desolate northern region of the Radiant Kingdom, was once the grand home of ancient ogres. But after the Great War, they all died out, leaving Kingram as the absolute last of his kind. Exploring this mountain is considered completely impossible due to a massive, impenetrable barrier. Up until now, not a single powerful wizard or brilliant scholar has figured out how to bypass it. Terran, the legendary Blazing King, is highly curious about Lewin's motives. He asks if Lewin is chasing rumors that the ancient ogre god's rage turned the mountain into a holy sanctuary. While other people have no business traveling to such a dangerous zone, for Lewin, knowing that Draco spent a century there is the only reason he needs. Of course, he is not about to reveal his secrets to the Blazing King. Lewin simply replies that he chose it because he wants to tackle the hardest challenge available. Terran warns him to pick something else, saying the barrier is simply impossible to breach. But with a confident smirk, Lewin fires back, asking if it would not be legendary for a 16-year-old to crack it open. The king warns him that he might become the very first champion to fail this special celebratory mission. Still suspicious, Terran asks if Lewin knows why he recommended him to the Crown Prince in the first place. He wanted Lewin kept close and Raverdeen to watch his every move. Lewin feels a sudden chill run down his spine. Terran concludes that Lewin's hidden powers must be connected to this strange quest, promising that he will be keeping a very close eye on him. Safely back in his room, Lewin asks Strang if they can actually pull this off. That mountain was destroyed ages ago, and who knows if there is anything even left to find after all this time. The little bear reassures him, saying human methods failed, but Lewin is different because his capabilities exceed normal limits. Suddenly, a knock echoes through the door, with a voice introducing himself as Javaloso. Lewin tells them to enter, and in walk his escort mages, Street Cat, and Delicious Boar. Strang finds these names hilarious, but they explain the Blazing King loves giving his mages bizarre code names. With a wide grin, the boar asks if they are ready to visit the artifact chamber to claim his ultimate reward. This vault is split into 4 ranks, from common rank C up to the legendary rank X. Lewin can only access up to rank A, as rank X remains locked to everyone, including the Emperor, unless a world-shaking event happens. Lewin wonders what kind of insane event could unlock that place. Following his guides, he starts exploring rank C, where even the common items are top tier, like a powerful magic sword. As expected of the magic tower, even the lowest tier has incredible treasures. He also finds a legendary book that has been sealed in this chamber for over 100 years. One book is titled Beyond the Walls of Class 7 by Deham Cruz, while another details expeditions to find ancient beasts. Lewin asks if they are allowed to read whatever they want here, and Street Cat replies it all depends on the Tower Master's permission. But once they step into rank A, not a single relic reacts to Lewin's presence. Surprised, Lewin asks if it is normal to get completely ignored, and the boar admits it is actually super rare. Usually, entering rank A means you have the talent to draw these items to you. Being completely rejected by every single relic feels like a massive punch to Lewin's pride. But Strang crosses her arms, telling him not to worry since this stuff is all garbage. So, what do you and I take from this? The real ultimate treasure is hidden somewhere else entirely. Alright, you and I are diving straight into Area X, a mysterious zone guarded by a massive door that almost nobody can enter. Strang can smell a dragon-made artifact behind it, and trust me, things are about to get wild. Even with those legendary treasures nearby, Lewin was locked out. He had to focus on what he could actually grab in this room. Suddenly, a blinding green light burst from the massive door, flooding the room. The guards flinched instantly, totally consumed by sheer terror. Borgard shouted that this rare event was happening for the first time in 56 years. Back in the chamber, King Terran questioned if Kungan's tooth had really reacted to Lewin, and Street Cat confirmed it with a bow. This meant Lewin actually had the talent to take the throne. Inside Area X, 3 items of absolute, godlike power were kept: a staff, a suit of armor, and a tooth. They all shared one key trait. They kept their owner at the absolute peak of power. The staff amplified magic infinitely, standing as the ultimate symbol of the King of Mages. 56 years ago, Terran himself was chosen by that very staff. Every single person chosen by this artifact rose to lead the tower. Meanwhile, Morshi's armor blocks any physical or magical attack, choosing a master once every century. Those chosen by the armor became legendary knights. But Kungan's tooth, belonging to the ancient ogre chief, hadn't picked a master in hundreds of years. This was absolute proof of Lewin's destiny. He picked up the massive tooth with shocking ease, an item so heavy that 6 grown men could barely lift it together. It was as if Lewin had the raw power of an ogre. The king's mind was racing with questions. Pay attention here, because this is where things get tense. Seeing Lewin's insane ogre strength and the tooth's choosing, the king makes a grave decision. In a cold voice, he commands his guards to summon the Scream Mage. Lewin packed his gear and set his sights west towards Sky Mountain. With only 1 month to finish the quest, he secured all his travel supplies. While packing, Lewin noticed Street Cat staring at him. He asked if there was something else on his mind, and Street Cat cryptically replied yes and no at the same time. As a mage of the tower, I cannot share personal opinions, so officially, there is nothing. But as a veteran of this world, I have some critical advice. The Magic Tower is incredibly generous to its own mages, but brutally ruthless to outsiders. You need to keep your guard up and doubt absolutely everyone. Lewin took the warning seriously. Soon, he arrived at the ancient Tesheran Castle, the closest fortress to Sky Mountain. It was originally built to defend against massive ogre invasions. Books claim the walls were taller than the capitals, guarded by a powerful army of ironclad soldiers. But when Lewin actually arrived, reality was completely different. The place was a complete ghost town, its purpose long gone. With the ogre threat vanished, the once feared soldiers had degraded into useless drunks getting wasted in broad daylight. A hulking thug blocks Lewin's path, demanding he hand over his valuables. Lewin casually steps forward and places a hand on his shoulder. With one quick tap, he drops the thug instantly and walks off, chuckling at how wrong the history books were. Up ahead, another lazy guard is snoring loudly, and Lewin looks down at him with pure disgust. Lewin wakes the sleeping guard, who immediately jumps up and apologizes. Lewin waves it off, asking where he can rent a reliable horse. Scratching his neck, the stable hand admits that there are actually 0 horses left. This is the only stable in town, making Strang burst out laughing at how utterly pathetic this whole place is. The worker mentions that while the place is usually dead, a massive rush of customers suddenly showed up today. Lewin tells him to hold on a second. You and I both know that is definitely not a coincidence. A completely dead town suddenly running out of horses right when our hero arrives. Someone else is plotting in the shadows, and they're moving fast. Lewin instantly remembers the Street Cat's warning. Even Strang admits he felt a bizarre presence, trailing them ever since they boarded the Mana train. Glancing back suspiciously, Lewin realizes someone is definitely stalking him. He acts instantly, bribing the facility's attendant with a shiny gold coin and ordering him to give a heads up if anyone comes asking questions about him. It's clear his stalkers belong to the powerful Riak Empire. Whether it is the Crown Prince or the Blazing King tracking him, both have dangerous motives. Running into either of them right now would spell absolute disaster. Lewin has to resolve this threat before climbing Sky Mountain, knowing he cannot fall into their trap. Yet, when he returns to the station, the attendant insists that absolutely nobody came asking for him. The worker kept watch the entire time, and he does not seem to be lying. But he does mention one highly bizarre detail that occurred while Lewin was gone. He has a black hole in his memory. About 3 minutes of his day are completely gone. High-level mind control can completely dominate a person, erasing any memory of the event. If the enemy successfully search the worker's mind, they already know Lewin is fully aware of their pursuit. Entering his room, Lewin finds a suspicious note resting on his bed. It claims they mean him no harm, advising him to stop looking for them and just focus on his mission. This completely infuriates Lewin. They sneaked into his room and had the absolute nerve to tell him to calm down. Angry, he dares his stalkers to bring everything they have. He charges out, leaping right through the window and across the rooftops. Vaulting effortlessly from building to building, he finally drops back down to the ground. Strang asks what the plan is, and Lewin says he's hunting them down. Opening his handy mini-map, he tracks multiple moving red dots, testing if these spies can actually keep up with a former triathlon champion. A floating fiery skull asks if they should pursue. The surrounding hooded figures laugh, noting the kid is eager to play, so they might as well join the fun. The leader orders them to tail Lewin without killing him. As he sprints through the streets, Three hooded mages land near their leader, reporting they somehow lost the boy's trail. But another spy realizes the truth: the boy is actually waiting for them. Suddenly, a strange sound echoes from behind a pile of wooden crates. Lewin blindsides them, charging forward without a second of hesitation to land a heavy punch directly to a mage's face. As he turns to the next target, the injured mage panics and summons a magic shield. That magic shield is totally useless. The second mage catches a brutal fist to the face, dropping cold instantly. Now, only one stalker is left standing. The last mage laughs like a maniac, admitting he was curious about Lewin, but never expected him to be such an absolute beast. Lewin silently wonders who these people really are. The mustache mage claims the Tower Master sent them for protection, though Lewin feels it is pure surveillance. Smiling, the mage praises Lewin's skills, rips a magic scroll, and vanishes instantly. That skull tattoo on his neck marks him as an evil mage, a member of a shady group known for dirty work. The only clues about this syndicate are their brand and their name. Strang asks how Lewin feels, leaving you and I wondering what is next. Let us jump right into this epic journey where our main character admits his enemies felt weaker than school kids, but warns us one power remains a total mystery. That mage used 6th class magic, so we definitely cannot let our guard down just yet. He needs to stay sharp. His bear companion asks what the plan is, and Lewin says he will force it to show itself. The next morning, our hero sets off for Sky Mountain. The path is a dead, dry wasteland, but Lewin feels he is getting close. Suddenly, he stops as his inner power circle begins to tremble. Exhausted from the brutal trek, our main character finally arrives, only to find Sky Mountain completely sealed by a bizarre barrier. This was once home to Draka, but the barrier refuses to budge. Strang previously mentioned that only a non-human power could breach this seal, but our hero still has no idea how to pull that off. A normal human would try to smash through it, but that is flat out impossible since human hands cannot shatter this mystic wall. The bear companion asks if they can bypass it using ogre methods. Lewin jokingly wonders if he can just call out to them like an old friend, slowly pieces things together. But there is a catch. Rumor says all the ogres here were wiped out. Yet, that might just be a human assumption. Feeling anxious, Lewin stares at the massive wall. Strang reminds him that his true talent is shattering expectations, not following them. Placing his hand against the barrier, our hero speaks to it, announcing he has brought Chief Kungan Tooth Relic with him. He asks the barrier to grant him passage if it can hear his voice. They wait, but the wall remains completely still. Now pay close attention here, because a strange purple glow suddenly erupts right beneath his hand. This powerful energy starts pushing our hero back, and a hidden observer spots something absolutely terrifying. Lewin actually did it. The kid opened a path, completing a legendary task that no human had ever achieved before. But as the hidden stalker rushes to slip inside, the barrier snaps shut. Suddenly, a heavy fist shoots out, striking him square in the chin. Lewin has him trapped. This mustache villain will not escape again. Lewin smashes the ground, triggering an earthquake that knocks his pursuer off balance, before locking him down with a powerful binding spell. Completely tied up, the mage cannot even move. He thought he was sneaking up on our hero, but walked straight into a trap. This deadly game is finally over, but a massive shadow suddenly leaps right over our main character. A giant ogre crashes down, instantly flattening the trapped mage with a heavy club. The brutal scene shocks our hero. The giant beast turns to Lewin, demanding his name, while Strang warns him that these monsters possess the wild minds of beasts. He finally made it inside, but Lewin immediately realizes he is in a completely different world. Dozens of ogres surround him, sniffing around and growling that he does not smell human. Strang warns him to stay extremely alert, since human laws and morals mean absolutely nothing to these creatures. The ogres hold back for now, likely respecting Kungan Tooth, but their next move is completely unpredictable. Keeping his guard up, Lewin pushes forward, finally reaching the windy summit. Lewin asks if they have to climb even higher, but suddenly, the mountain itself begins to move. It is not a rock wall, but a colossal ogre. This is Chief Harkon, who heard rumor of a human carrying Kungan relic. He is absolutely massive. Surprisingly polite, Harkon welcomes him as a guest rather than feeding him to the birds. Our hero explains that the legendary relic chose him. The chief is skeptical since no human should wield such power, but Lewin offers to prove it to him right then and there. You and I can tell this chief is actually quite sharp. He sensed our hero's strong aura from miles away, recognizing the incredible power hidden within him. The chief demands to know his true identity. Before speaking, Lewin glances back at his companion. Lewin asks if the chief remembers Dragonia, the legendary dragon of this peak. Shocked, Harkon asks how he knows that name. Lewin calmly reveals he learned it from Kingram, The giant asks if Kingram is still alive. Lewin explains his old ally lives on as an artifact at the academy, acting as one of his mentors. He asks if they are still curious about his identity. Lewin declares himself a close friend of Kingram, who once ruled this very mountain. He is the chosen one of Kungan Tooth, carrying the destructive legacy of Dra. He is Lewin Ardell. Staring right at the chief, he boldly asks if they still plan to throw him to the eagles. With a massive grin, the chief laughs and says no, promising a royal welcome. This incredibly soft response completely stuns our hero. But there is a catch. Ogres demand a rite of passage for all guests. If our hero wants respect, he must first prove his strength. His bear ally explains the test: an intense arm wrestling match. His opponent is Omarush, a massive champion. Thinking this must be a joke, Lewin stares blankly at the giant. The crowd goes wild, chanting for the giant to crush him. Nervous, our hero asks if losing means he gets thrown to the birds. His companion is not even sure. The two face off, locked in a tense stare down. The giant massive build is terrifying, but our hero is not going in blind. His power is insane thanks to Kungan Tooth, which boosted his physical strength by 1,000 points. That brings his total to 3,520 points. The giant senses this power, but refuses to hold back. Lewin smirks, telling his opponent to give it everything. The referee starts the countdown, then roars for the match to begin. Lewin pushes so hard his shirt sleeve rips apart. The champion eyes go wide in shock as their hands remain perfectly locked in a brutal deadlock. Drenched in sweat, our hero pushes past his limits, unleashing one final burst of power. But it fails, and the giant slams his hand down in instant defeat. The champion roars in victory. Lewin collapses, nursing his aching hand and wondering if he is about to become food for the eagles. Instead, a booming voice commands him to stand. The giant begins praising him, calling him a truly remarkable human for surviving that clash. By taking on this trial, our hero has earned their deep respect. Strang praises him for pulling off this impossible feat. Lewin learns it took Draw 17 years to beat this opponent, making him promise to do it in one single month. Soon, a grand feast begins. Turns out, ogres are fantastic chefs. Watching them live peacefully, Lewin wonders why they choose to stay hidden away in this mountain. But deep down, you and I know this is only the beginning of an experience far bigger than his original quest. As a giant slowly approaches, "All right, you and I are diving back in," as an ogre offers to forge our hero a weapon from his legendary tooth. Lewin's mind immediately starts reeling with the possibilities. Stunned by this crazy offer, Lewin remembers standing right outside the mysterious Room X. Gripping Kungan's tooth, he can't help but wonder what its real power actually is. Strang told him it represents ultimate raw strength, a true primordial source of power. But Lewin does not care about ancient history, he just wants to know how to use it. Unlike Algol's staff or Mori's armor, this tooth has no clear use. Sure, it could top a mace, but just carrying it gives Lewin an insane strength boost that is already a massive advantage. Back in the present, Omarush drops this massive offer to forge a weapon from the artifact. Our main character has been hauling it around without any clue how to unlock its true power. The tooth is heavy and unbelievably hard, impossible for normal people to use. But for Omarush, the legendary iron handler, it's child's play. He is basically a god-level master blacksmith. The giant ogre asks if Lewin has a specific design in mind. Lewin just smirks, asking if it can be customized. Meanwhile, nearly half a month has already flown by since he arrived at Sky Mountain. With ogres shouting and running around, Lewin spends his days helping them hunt. He is completing intense training that used to be completely impossible for him. After sprinting up the peak, he checks his status window. But one obsession consumed his days: his arm wrestling showdowns with Omarush. The current score? 15 matches, 15 crushing defeats. But he refuses to quit, constantly demanding rematches. His adorable bear companion cheers him on, noticing his steady progress. Even the giant ogre smiles, praising Lewin for finally refining his strength. No more wasted energy. Thanks to Omarush's guidance, Lewin learns to control his power more effectively every single day. He sets a clear goal to defeat this monster before leaving. The two trade trash talk as the giant claims Lewin stands zero chance. But pay attention here: just a few days later, the massive ogre's eyes pop with absolute shock. Finally, after 17 grueling matches, Lewin secures his very first win. He celebrates like a world champion, roaring to the sky and earning the deep respect of the entire tribe. A smiling Omarush admits defeat, confessing that Lewin has surprised him countless times. And for the very first time, he actually calls our hero by his real name. The giant declares that Lewin is finally ready. Lewin gasps, asking if his custom weapon is finished. Honestly, it was done ages ago, but the massive blacksmith chose to hold onto it. Omarush wanted to wait until Lewin actually beat him, refusing to hand it over a second sooner. Lewin suddenly realizes he almost got completely scammed in broad daylight like that. Reaching out, the ogre presents his ultimate masterpiece, Kungan's Molar Gauntlet. It is completely indestructible by physical force and instantly boosts his raw strength by 2,000 points. Forged from a legendary artifact, its design is perfect for a close-range mage. Almarouche asks what he thinks of the work, proud to have crafted it just for him. Honestly, Lewin thinks the weapon is absolutely incredible. He immediately asks to summon all the warriors of Sky Mountain. Once gathered, our bold main character reveals he wants to arm wrestle every single one of them. Crowded together, the ogres whisper that this is pure madness, doubting a human's strength. But honestly, an event like this is just too entertaining to pass up. These monsters love competition and respect raw power, so they watch with intense excitement. Even a tiny baby ogre raises its arms, cheering wildly for its dad. Strang crosses her arms, noting that this reminds her of Draka, who was exactly the same. But Draka only managed to defeat 17 ogres after 30 long years on this mountain. The old Lewin would have definitely thought this was impossible. But wearing Kungan's Molar Gauntlet, our hero feels completely invincible. The countdown begins, and this epic competition finally kicks off. In a flash, the ogre's massive arm gets slammed flat onto the table. When the matches wrap up, they sadly ask if Lewin is leaving already. They are all smiling, thanking him for the incredible memories. Now, you and I can feel his deep gratitude as he reaches out his hand, making them wonder if he wants another match. Even after defeating 100 ogres, that is not what Lewin wants. It is a handshake, a simple human custom to greet friends, show joy, or say a warm goodbye. It is a silent promise to meet again. Meanwhile, back at the castle, a voice demands updates. A cloaked figure answers that there is nothing significant to report. King Terran is growing incredibly anxious. The Scream Mage vanished without a trace, and the 2 survivors from the last mission crawled back with fatal wounds. Even the follow-up search party found absolutely no human presence on Sky Mountain. The Blazing King slams his fist, growling that they have been played. But a new voice suddenly cuts in. An agent reports that Lewin Ardell has just arrived in Raverdine. This sudden news completely stuns the king, leaving him totally speechless and lost in deep thought. Snapping out of it, the king barks an order to summon the boy immediately. Facing him, Lewin calmly confesses that he failed his mission, claiming that success was completely impossible. Lewin claims the barrier was just too powerful to break through. But King Terra narrows his eyes and calls him a terrible liar, immediately seeing right through his story. The king demands honesty, pointing out that Lewin is Kungan's chosen, making his mission to find the Ogre Fortress highly suspicious. Sweating, Lewin nervously asks if he was being watched. The king sighs, explaining he is not watching out of suspicion, but out of fear that Lewin might become a rogue mage opposing the tower. But Lewin pushes further. Lewin asks if any mage opposing the king becomes an enemy of the tower. The king nods, then cuts him off, demanding to know what our hero actually saw on Sky Mountain. With a creepy glint in his eyes, the king asks if the first ogres are still alive. Lewin stays dead silent, staring at the monarch's unsettling expression. Walking out of the castle, Lewin breathes a massive sigh of relief. He narrowly escaped, remembering the chilling warning that the king could easily expose any lie by reading his memories. But Lewin gambled that a legendary boundary mage wouldn't use such underhanded tactics on a mere student. Of course, the Blazing King scoffed, saying Lewin was being far too modest. In the end, the king accepted the failure, telling him to return to the academy. Lewin's high-stakes gamble on the king's massive pride paid off in the most spectacular way. If the king was even slightly more irrational, Lewin would have been caught immediately. But the Exone artifact chose him, proving beyond a doubt that he is destined for greatness. It is clear the king will keep a very close eye on him. For now, Lewin just wants to escape that suffocating castle. Soon, the mana train speeds back toward Ignite Academy. Arriving at school, Lewin is greeted by massive celebration banners. His friends proudly hoist him onto their shoulders, even though the big tournament ended 2 whole months ago. Back in the dorm, Jason lugs in a heavy box. Inside is a mountain of fan mail, which is totally expected for the grand winner of the festival. And those are just the recent ones. The earlier letters were stuffed into the closet. But when they open those doors, a massive avalanche of mail literally floods the entire room. Lewin is totally stunned by this crazy sight. And trust me, you and I would be too, especially with literal princesses sending letters calling him a true genius. All right, you and I are jumping into the story of a hero who turned down royalty, only to find some very suspicious letters. Jason sighs and explains that the word is for anyone trying to get close to him. He flops onto the bed, asking about holiday plans, but Lewin just smiles, saying he has something different in mind this year. Later, Lewin is on horseback. It has been 5 years since he last visited home, as he always spent his holidays staying in the dorms. Before, he lacked the courage to face his town, worried he could not answer questions about his school life. But now Lewin can hold his head high and finally reunite with his family. But when he arrives, the townsfolk just stare in complete shock. Scratching his neck, Lewin smiles and asks how everyone has been. They can hardly believe their young master is actually back. Lewin apologizes for his long absence, but his sister, Luina, rushes over to hug him before angrily scolding him. He had not sent a single letter, yet he suddenly just showed up. Smiling, Lewin approaches her, saying she has grown so much he barely recognized her, but she is still as cute as ever. He asks his father to gather the entire family so they can finally catch up. Soon, night falls, and a beautiful full moon shines brightly overhead. Lewin shares everything that happened over the past 6 years. Hearing this, Luina and their maid realize how many hardships he had to overcome through sheer, relentless effort. He is a massive source of pride, especially after winning the grand festival and meeting the crown prince. Even though 2 months have passed, news travels slowly in this rural town. That explains the royal letters and the stack of mail from noble families. However, there is a looming crisis that the young master needs to be warned about. Sensing their serious tone, Lewin asks his father to speak frankly, saying it would be worse to hear it from strangers. His father tenses up, sighing that there is no avoiding it. He explains that they receive countless letters focused on Lewin, with many proposing meetings or offering donations just to use his name. Now, pay attention here, this is where the real threat emerges. His name is Bylos Monzo, a ruthless lord using their trade routes to choke the family territory. They have been offering terrible prices for local products, essentially holding the Ardell territory hostage while trying to appoint their own mage as a guardian. At this rate, the family finances are near collapse with no solution in sight. Lewin remembers the happy workers who wanted this year's harvest to be a gift for him. Closing his eyes, Lewin makes a decision. The old saying about a bad man needing a beating echoes in his mind. If this lord wants to meet him, then he will gladly pay him a visit. As Mr. begins packs supplies for the journey, he apologizes for the trouble waiting for Lewin. Watching him prepare with a heavy heart, he begs the young master not to resent his father. He explains that the lord has done everything to hide these troubles, leaving most people completely unaware of the looming crisis. This peace endures solely on his father's sacrifices. Suddenly, shame washes over Lewin for his own incredible arrogance. Frustrated, he wondered if his father was just silently enduring it all. He had let his ego take over, believing he could solve a crisis his father could not, despite knowing his father loved this land more than life itself. Mr. Begins watches Lewin with sorrowful eyes. Lewin then hands him a small box, asking him to deliver it directly to his father. Inside were 10,000 gold coins, his prize from the festival, which would serve a much greater purpose here. Lewin explains that the funds should be used to buy land, making the family independent of Monzo. Begins agrees that is smart, but doubts anyone would sell land right now. Lewin simply asks a question. What if they simply take the land back and cleanse it? They can reclaim Wolf Hill and the Chinhong Plains, currently overrun by monsters, using his festival funds. They can hire mercenaries to clear the land, then cultivate it to lease out. If they get mercenaries at a fair rate, it will be a solid investment. You and I both know our hero is not one to sit back. With the plan locked in, he starts his journey to Monzo. The trade hub of Monzo is the largest territory nearby, supplying all surrounding areas. Its lord, Bylos Monzo, reportedly bought his title using dirty money or by leading the notorious Walpa gang. He needed to steel his resolve. Arriving at a lavish mansion crawling with guards, our main character introduces himself as the second son of the Ardell family and asks if the lord is inside. The guards barely acknowledge him, scoffing, yet another Ardell has come to visit. The 3 guards whisper amongst themselves, mocking the Ardell family for acting like children who stir up trouble they cannot handle. They laugh loudly, openly enjoying the disrespect. His father had endured this exact treatment every single time he visited. Yet, he still kept coming to the city. The guards sneer, telling Lewin to go inside, but mocking that an Ardell will probably just get thrown right back out. But as the soldiers notice Lewin standing completely unfazed, their confident tone shifts. This time, things are different. Our main character is not just a student, and he will not tolerate their insolence. He steps closer, his magic radiating power as he declares that these men need some serious discipline. With a simple flick of his wrist, he blasts a guard sprawling onto the floor. Right then, a bearded lord approaches the gates. He instantly recognizes Lewin as the champion who won the grand festival and the top mage of the new generation. This is Bylos Monzo, who mockingly sneers that the boy is too important to even lift his head. Lewin retorts that perhaps the Lord should be the one bowing his head. If he feels ashamed for dragging Lewin all this way, then keeping his head bowed is only natural. The Lord stares with a serious expression, but a sly smirk soon spreads across his face. Lewin's straightforward attitude is exactly as rumored. Unfazed by the pressure, he keeps his head held high, casually mentioning that the Lord needs to retrain his guard dogs. Since they treated his family like a tribe of goblins, Lewin merely gave them a warning. Looking back, they see a pile of guards knocked out cold. Monzo is furious, but Lewin just smiles, casually asking if the Lord is okay. Masking his rage, the Lord tells Lewin to treat the guards as his own subordinates, though he sees inside. Taking him at his word, Lewin slips on his gauntlet and punches another guard, sending him flying backwards. The soldier crashes hard, armor scraping against the stone. Lewin declares that these guys needed some quick etiquette lessons as well. Lewin asks if they will be staying outside much longer, firmly demanding to be shown inside the mansion. Pointing at a stuffed werewolf, Monzo asks if it is beautiful, explaining he collects these art pieces as a hobby. Lewin frankly admits that looking at them just makes him uncomfortable. Monzo shrugs, saying tastes differ, but the young man calls it a rather bizarre hobby. While serving some rare tea, Monzo starts a tense mind game we need to watch closely. All right, you and I are diving into a massive standoff as Lewin rejects the offer. Monzo just plays dumb, asking if he wants a cold drink instead. Our hero demands to know if Monzo is seriously acting clueless, and without waiting for an answer, he dumps the entire cup right onto the table. Total silence fills the room as tea drips from the table onto the floor, dialing the tension to 11. But the Lord just smirks, slowly lowering his head. He knows Lewin suspects poison, but insists he would never do that since they are not enemies. In fact, he wants to be friends. Lewin immediately shoots back. Do friends threaten each other? Monzo claims it was a proposal, not a threat, made with the best intentions. Furious, Lewin retorts, "How can you call trying to ruin Ardel's entire territory a simple proposal?" Our main character firmly declares that his answer is no. Monzo sets his cup down, sighing that it is a real shame Lewin is throwing away his friendship. He warns that Ardel's goods will stay dirt cheap because of this. Lewin fires back that Monzo had better restore the original prices. The two lock eyes, and the air in the room turns absolutely suffocating. Losing his temper, Monzo calls Lewin an ignorant country bumpkin. He asks if this kid seriously thinks he can just walk away from a deal when he should be begging on his knees. Suddenly, armed guards flood the room. Lewin remembers that Magic Academy students are strictly banned from casting spells during vacations. With the room surrounded, Monzo sneers that he is going to teach him some manners. Lewin stands up and slips on his gauntlet, realizing the Lord never planned on letting him leave alive. Monzo orders his men to kill Lewin, boasting he will turn his body into a display piece for his gallery. Lewin is chilled, realizing this lunatic wants him as a trophy and never wanted a real conversation. Watch closely because Lewin is about to deal with this greedy southern pig. To take down the very first soldier, he charges up his legendary finger flick. Aiming right for the guard's forehead, he releases the strike, blasting him away like a bowling ball crashing into pins. Instantly, his gauntlet flares up, summoning the first boss, Kungan, who will fight by his side until his power runs dry. Monzo is stunned. This crazy ability extends Lewin's attack range using Kungan's giant arm. A fiery aura explodes around our hero, shaping into a massive, towering ogre. Even if he is on vacation, when his life is threatened, he has no choice but to unleash his magic for self-defense. Kungan's terrifying presence breaks the enemy's morale, sending them running in sheer panic. But Lewin warns them that there is no escape, charging forward with his massive partner right beside him. With a massive mana explosion, Lewin completely wrecks Monzo's grand palace. Outside, citizens flee in terror as the greedy lord's prized collection of weird artifacts burns to ashes. Our hero is shocked the old man is still whining about his treasures. He really needs to worry about his own neck. A sharp scream echoes, followed by another earth-shaking blast. Standing tall, Lewin demands, "Now Monzo, you are going to restore Ardel's prices and pay back 10 times what you stole." On his knees, the sobbing lord asks how much that will even cost. Grabbing the terrified lord by his collar, Lewin's face darkens as he commands. Immediately. Later on, riding away on his horse, our main character smiles, imagining how proud his father will be when he hears the news. Having settled the score, he begins the long journey back home. But trust me, what waits for him at home is going to catch you off guard. An unexpected visitor is waiting in Ardel, Miss Irene, smiling warmly. This instantly triggers a memory of a banquet 2 months ago. He had been completely wiped out by the social pressure. Sure, It was fun early on, but he just wanted to escape back home. Right then, Irene approached, asking if he was referring to the small but lovely territory of Ardell. She was relieved the event went smoothly, since any trouble would have been a total disaster. But our hero could not help but speak his mind. Those snobs had insulted his classmates and completely disrespected his hometown. Smiling, she asks if Ardell is truly as gorgeous as he says. He nods, describing it as a peaceful paradise she simply has to visit. Irene asks if he is serious, warning him not to complain if she actually drops by. But our hero never thought she would actually take him literally. Now, his sister is absolutely burning with jealousy, while his father is holding back tears of joy. Luina demands to know what is going on here. She basically interrogates him, asking if they are dating and how they met. Shortly after, learning her brother was supposed to show her around, she immediately volunteers to guide Irene herself. His dad chuckles, finding it adorable that his sister is still so attached after 6 years apart. But once they are alone, he leans in, asking if she is really not his girlfriend. Hearing a firm no, his dad's face visibly drops. But they quickly drop the subject to focus on business, calling Bagans into the room to join them. He brings in a heavy box, placing it right before Lewin. His father declares he cannot accept this money, leaving our hero staring in shock. Lewin argues it is his own personal fortune, not the state's, and he is a proud member of the family. While he is indeed the heart of Ardell, his father reminds him he has bigger duties elsewhere. Lewin goes quiet, completely unable to argue back. He deeply respects his father's unwavering pride and high moral standards, but it hurts knowing his dad still hides the territory's financial troubles from him. With absolute determination, he declares his wish to use his own funds to help Ardell, exactly like his father did in the past. Begans looks nervous, explaining he believed the young master deserved to know how the Lord was funding the domain out of pocket. Slightly let down, his dad requests that Begans consult him before making such calls. No matter how good the intentions, accepting that cash is out of the question. He is not ready to hand over the family burdens. Besides, 3,600 gold coins still remain. Lewin finds that number strange and whispers that he sent way more. But Baggins murmurs back that his stubborn father refused to take a single extra coin. They keep whispering, agreeing that the Lord is ridiculously stubborn. But speaking out loud, Begans adds that this is simply his Lord's way of life, and it can never be changed. Begans offers a warm smile. Our hero realizes he is absolutely right and smiles too, accepting his father's unyielding pride and high moral standards. Later on, Lewin steps outside and spots Luna and Irene walking together. They are holding hands and getting along incredibly well. He walks up and asks Irene if she enjoyed her tour. With a sly wink, the little sister says she's going for a stroll and wishes him luck. Walking away, Luina shouts back, telling her brother to play nice because Irene is awesome. Blushing, Irene wonders aloud why Luina is saying such embarrassing things. Just as red-faced, Luna asks if she wants to go for a quiet walk with him. Strolling together, she admits she finds Luina adorable and wishes she had a little sister of her own, but she can tell he is deeply distracted. As the family heir, he is desperately trying to figure out how to help his homeland. But he is drawing a total blank. Between his tournament winnings and the money from Monzo, he has over 40,000 gold coins to spend however he wants. Irene giggles, noting that even after her long trip, he is still obsessed with his work. And that's where we leave them, as Lewin finally realizes he should focus on the beautiful girl beside him. Let's dive into the moment Irene reveals her trip from Laverne took only 2 days. It was just over the mountain, incredibly close. That casual update was exactly the breakthrough Lewin needed. The southern mountain covered most of Ardell, but its brutal, rugged terrain made it impossible to cultivate. It was nothing but desolate wasteland. It was constantly overrun by monsters, yet being so close to Lake 8 made its location incredibly valuable. By carving a path right through that mountain, they could turn Ardell into a major power hub, creating a direct southern route straight to the Reich Empire. Touching his chin, Lewin wondered why he had not thought of this sooner. It would be massive for his homeland. Grabbing Irene's hands, Lewin thanked her for solving his biggest headache. The point his warm grip. With a massive grin, Lewin said goodbye and sprinted off to get to work. Watching him go with a warm heart, Irene could not help but think how incredibly fascinating he was. But his father shut it down immediately, calling it impossible. A disappointed Lewin pushed for answers, and Began explained they had already tried. Every single one of the 8 merchant guilds at Lake 8 rejected them. To those merchants, Ardell was just a waste of time. Began insisted that even though the Lord saw the massive potential, it was totally unrealistic. But Lewin refused to take no for an answer. He argued that things were different now, and they could not just quit after one rejection. Maybe a proposal backed by the Academy's grand champion would actually force them to listen. The two older men stared in silence at the kid's absolute confidence. Since Lewin had already saved them during the Monzo crisis, they could not really hold him back. So, Lewin's father gave him the green light, and the young man eagerly took the challenge. Suddenly, a familiar voice asked if he was going to Lake 8. It was Irene, teasing that they were now both illegal travelers. Lewin was totally shocked to hear Irene had snuck across the border. Worried, he immediately asked her if she realized just how incredibly dangerous that was. Crossing her arms, Irene smirked, saying it was nothing compared to his wild stunts. He had literally raided another dorm and pulled off those crazy, reckless moves during the festival tournament. But pay attention here, he actually pulled off every single crazy stunt. Compared to him, her little border hopping was just a minor prank. Laughing it off, Lewin agreed to let her tag along. Since she was already an illegal traveler, she figured a little more rule-breaking wouldn't hurt. The duo then headed straight for Lake 8, climbing the southern mountains to scout their future route. The mountain terrain was so incredibly wild that even with a compass, finding their way was a complete nightmare, forcing them to use a tracking spell. But remember, casting magic outside of school during holidays was strictly forbidden. Since Irene had been casting spells since day one, they had to keep this completely quiet. Too bad their tracking magic guided them right into a dangerous den of bloodthirsty werewolves. Lewin was forced to go all out, obliterating the monsters with his devastating mana explosion spells. By targeting the pack leader, they easily exploited the beast's biggest weakness and escaped, which suddenly triggered a mysterious system quest. Stunned by the unexpected pop-up, Lewin cast his tracking magic again to resume their trek. Fortunately, no more beasts attacked, and they finally reached their destination. They stood before the massive gates of Lake 8, a giant city-state where 8 colossal lakes merge with the open sea. Just like Alta, it was a neutral territory ruled by the Empire. But instead of a king, a council of 8 powerful merchant representatives governed the land. This merchant paradise dominated trade across the entire continent, a place where money ruled absolutely. Now that they had arrived, our young duo needed to find the famous Golden Hall. I know what you are thinking. And yes, this grand lakeside mansion was their headquarters, the perfect place to make or break their entire plan. The duo admitted they did not have an appointment, but Lewin calmly asked the guard to send a message. He told him to inform the bosses that Lewin Ardell, alongside his friend, Irene, had arrived. The guard's eyes went wide with shock, asking if he was really the grand festival champion. Admitting he had not recognized him, he scrambled inside to report their arrival immediately. Fortunately, they were let in right away. The mansion was jaw-droppingly luxurious, covered in gold from floor to ceiling, completely living up to its legendary name. The Golden Hall was the polar opposite of humble Ardell. As the guard gestured for them to enter, Lewin steeled his nerves, determined to negotiate as an equal, not a beggar. Pushing the doors open with absolute confidence, Lewin greeted them warmly. A group of stern-faced merchants alongside a woman and a mysterious hooded man stared back at him in silence. The powerful council sat around a massive table, looking at the young duo with amused smiles. One of them spoke up, saying he thought the rumors were fake, but now he was believing them. "Are you really the champion?" A bearded man asked what brought such a famous prodigy to their city. Hearing this, Lewin realized how valuable his festival title was, making things much easier. Another merchant remarked that they hoped his business proposal would be highly profitable for their guilds. Cutting straight to the chase, Lewin proposed a formal trade agreement between Ardell and Lake 8, but the merchants looked uneasy, and nobody in the room showed even a shred of interest. One representative scoffed, saying the kid had just ruined the mood. Another mentioned he knew of Ardell, calling it a tiny remote territory in the southern corner of Radian. A woman added that they were just a poor countryside estate. She reminded everyone they had already rejected Ardell's previous one-sided proposal because it offered zero profit. Sweat dripped down Lewin's face as the heavy silence filled the room. Seeing the deadlock, the bearded man declared negotiations over, reminding them they were merchants, not charities. Their interest died instantly when they saw no profit. Despite his fame as a legendary prodigy, they treated Lewin like a broke, country noble trying to scam them out of their money. Staring them down with a cold, piercing gaze, Lewin challenged them, asking if they were really going to walk away before he had even presented his actual proposal. Suddenly, Lewin slammed a heavy pouch onto the table. Instantly, every eye in the room locked onto the glittering fortune. With a confident smirk, he asked if this grabbed their attention. Remember, Lake 8 was a massive hub where 8 giant lakes met and led straight to the sea. Our main character, Lewin, had traveled all this way to secure a vital trade alliance with Lake 8. He had survived endless dangers along the way, knowing this deal would make everything worth it. After showing them his immense financial power, Lewin asked if they were finally ready to talk business. He offered to purchase 30,000 weapons, demanding they open their markets to Ardell in return. Naturally, his massive, daring offer completely stunned the entire room. That kind of cash represented 3 whole years of savings for a poor region like Ardell. But Lewin had learned a vital lesson back during the crisis with Monzo. Strength always draws in riches, and that fortune is what ultimately secures peace. If buying weapons was the path to power, he would build his foundation right here. And trust me, you and I are going to want to see how Representative Number 1, who controls all weapons, minerals, and beasts, handles this kid's insane offer next. Alright, let's jump right into a wild deal. Lewin realizes his major weapons supplier looks younger than his own sister, yet her presence commands absolute respect. She bluntly asks what he plans to do with so many blades. Lewin explains he needs them for a massive beast hunt near Ardell. Then he drops his grand plan, a trade route connecting Lake 8 and Ardell right through South Mountain. Suddenly, a bearded man interrupts with a sharp warning. He tells them never to speak that mountain's name. Irene is totally lost as to why the room suddenly got so heavy. Lewin is confused but spots the issue immediately. The top representative has gone completely pale. With a dead serious look, the young woman declares that crossing South Mountain is flat out impossible. A demon lives there, she says. Lewin's mind races. Wait, didn't he literally just fight that exact beast? He crossed that very mountain just last night. But the girl just scoffs, thinking he's a total liar. To prove it, Lewin unzips his jacket and pulls out a silver tuft of fur, a piece of the legendary silver werewolf's mane. Her jaw drops in pure, unadulterated shock. By finishing this insane mission, Lewin has just earned the ultimate respect of the powerful Valtra family. With tears streaming down her face, the young woman cries out that it's finally over. As others rush to comfort her, she weeps with pure relief the terrifying demon is finally dead. 3 days later, the representative walks alongside our main character, apologizing for keeping him. She never thought she'd return here, but the beast that took her father's life is finally gone. Our hero humbly plays it off, saying he just stumbled upon the monster by luck. But she's already planning to build a grand road linking Ardell to Oyota, fully backed by her family's wealth. This completely stuns him, and honestly, you can see why. He only expected a simple arms deal, with trade routes coming much later. Stunned, he asks if she is truly agreeing to his terms. She smiles and confirms they'll even pay premium rates for anything from Ardell. This deal is insanely generous. Locking eyes with him, Cecilia Valtra promises absolute loyalty and deep gratitude to her savior, Lewin. Barely knowing how to process such incredible luck, the young man can only smile. They shake hands, sealing the deal. Just like that, the contract with Lake 8 is locked in. Irene and Lewin begin heading home, with our hero dying to share the news with his dad. He is touched by Cecilia's kindness despite her growing up fatherless. Lewin feels a deep connection to her, having walked a very similar path himself. Shifting gears, Lewin admits he can't wait for her to see how lively Ardell will become. She sighs, confessing she truly admires his love for his hometown, wishing she felt the same way. Home should be a place of warmth, but for Irene, it is anything but. When Lewin asks if she'll ever invite him to visit her home, she looks down and mutters a quiet maybe. She clearly hates discussing her past, but Lewin resolves to visit her home nation of Thrace one day. Soon, their long journey ends as they finally step foot back in Ardell. Lewin's father is utterly astonished to learn they intend to buy Ardell's goods above market price. The old baron is completely dumbfounded that they are even paying for the road construction. But for Irene, the real shocker is that Lewin booked separate hotel rooms. Before she can blab more, Lewin clamps his hand over her mouth, quickly confirming that Cecilia agreed to everything. It is seriously impressive how the cold Valtra representative kept her word, even if preparing the weapons will take them 3 whole months. However, road construction starts this month, meaning Ardell will finally prosper. Proudly, his father notes how much Lewin has grown to achieve the impossible. Deeply moved, the Baron thanks Lewin for becoming a worthy man. Seizing the moment, our hero asks his father to trust him with one last request. He brings up Ardell's lifeline, their people's deepest desire. As he speaks, Lewin's face grows deadly serious. He wants vengeance for his late mother's soul. Here's where things get tragic, pay attention to this. On Lewin's 6th birthday, his special day twisted into a living nightmare. Mud monsters from the Crimson Plains swarmed their village, slaughtering countless innocent people. The absolute worst blow for Lewin, his mother was among the fallen. Now, without a single photo, his mother would be nothing but a fading memory. Even the survivors carried deep, painful scars. That was the day a young Lewin swore to become stronger. As the future Lord of Ardell, he vowed to never let this tragedy repeat. Today, we see his warriors already training hard with their spears. Determined to protect their home and avenge the dead, the villagers train daily. Irene quickly notices the tense new atmosphere in town. While Lewin is glad to see their dedication, she points out that their spear style is very unusual. That is because the instructor guiding them is the territory's own commander. He once held the title of Flash, fighting on the kingdom's front lines. Meet Sir Bolvar Peyton, Ardell's greatest knight. He was an absolute hero during the tragic attack years ago, saving countless lives, though nowadays he prefers a fishing rod over a spear. Suddenly, a voice interrupts the duo's chat. It is the legend himself, Sir Bolvar, walking up to greet them. The old knight praises Lewin for shaking up the capital, winning the grand festival, and planning the hunt. Irene introduces herself politely, thrilled to meet the legendary spear saint in person. Hearing his old title, Bolvar looks genuinely surprised. Lewin is totally shocked as well, realizing his friend already knew the knight's identity. Irene recalls studying Bolvar during her childhood lessons. Seeing the local warrior's stance, she knew their teacher had to be the iconic master who retired at age 30, a true legend among legends. Bolvar chuckles, surprised anyone still remembers those old stories. But Irene admits she was so fascinated by his achievements that she read every single record of his past, like the time he single-handedly cut down 10 high-ranking mages in the Perrin Confederation. An absolute god-tier feat. Bolvar feels honored, but insists he is just a rusty old man these days. Lewin demands to know why he hid his past, but the knight shrugs, saying Lewin simply never asked. Still, our hero feels pretty left out hearing his teacher's legend from someone else. Yet, Bolvar points out that Lewin actually knows him best. He knows him as the old man who loves fishing and walks with him. Bolvar has watched Lewin grow from a young kid and is incredibly proud of his journey. He asks if knowing that side of him is not enough. Smiling, Lewin realizes that, in a way, he actually knows the most important parts of his mentor. Changing the subject, Bolvar mentions he is training Lewin's little sister in swordsmanship and asks if Lewin wants to join. But he will not just be spectating. The knight wants him to jump into a duel with her. Little sister Ingrid is training with Bolvar, giving it her absolute all, showing insane skill for a 12-year-old. She shows off an incredibly solid foundation, but Bolvar is easily blocking her with just his left hand. After training, the knight teases Lewin that his sister is growing so fast she might soon surpass him. With a smile, Lewin agrees. Now, Bolvar declares it is Lewin's turn to step up. Memories of his childhood training with the great knight flood back, fueling his competitive drive. But soon, his eagerness turns to frustration, leaving him flat on the dirt. Trust me, you'll want to see how he bounces back. Stick with me, we are diving right back in as Bolvar smiles at Lewin's massive progress compared to 7 years ago. Curious, Lewin asks how the old man's past power compares to now. The old man just shrugs, claiming it has been too long to know for sure. Realizing he cannot easily compare them, Lewin suddenly remembers Sir Dare Parante, the sole 6-star knight in Eastern Leon. That is when Bolvar drops a bomb. He retired as a 7-star knight. Stunned, Lewin wonders why such a powerhouse is hiding in Ardell. Suddenly, a new quest notification pops up. He has to duel Bolvar within a 3-day time limit. Lewin knows his current blade skills are not enough, but Irene is totally jealous of the incredible training opportunity he just got. Direct lessons from a legendary 7-star knight. Plus, Bolvar is actually the only warrior in the entire kingdom who ever fought in the Grand Knights tournament. Lewin knows it is a golden chance, but the sheer fear of failing makes him freeze up. Noticing his tense look, Bolvar grins and says he loves that exact expression. Raising his blade, Lewin admits he is getting fired up. Determined to beat this crazy quest within 3 days, he challenges the old man. To pull off the impossible, our boy begins sparring with Sir Bolvar every single night. At first, the constant beatdowns feel totally pointless, but trusting that this system quest has a deeper meaning, he keeps pushing through the pain. Then, with barely 24 hours left on the clock, his bruised, sweaty face shows true focus as Lewin finally breaks through. His brutal grind pays off, forcing Sir Bolvar to actually grip his wooden sword with both hands. The final day arrives, and as the sun begins to set, the exhausted hero readies himself for one last desperate attempt. It is obvious, Lewin is completely running on empty. Now watch closely here. With only 30 minutes left on the clock, our exhausted hero starts to wonder if landing a clean, critical hit on a legendary 7-star master was always an impossible task. Lewin runs up, shocked that her brother has been training non-stop. Terrified for his health, she begs him to stop, completely confused by his reckless drive. Tears in her eyes, she yells that everyone has a limit, and he needs rest. But Lewin just looks back and asks for 30 more minutes. The group is deeply worried, but Lewin promises them that 30 minutes is all he needs. even though he knows a miracle in that short time is highly unlikely. For his very last run, the boy decides to completely change his game plan. As Irene, Luina, Beijing, and his father watch with wide, tense eyes, they are absolutely speechless at what he does next. Sir Bolvar leans forward, squinting to understand what is happening. Lewin drops his weapon entirely, raising his fists in a brawling stance. Having memorized Bolvar's blade movements over days of intense sparring, he decides to switch tactics. It is time to win with his actual specialty. Bolvar smiles, realizing the boy put himself through hell just to squeeze a specific concession out of him. Lewin nods with a smirk, teasing that the old man finally caught on. Amused, the veteran knight decides to throw in a special rule for his young master. For the final 30 minutes, Lewin can use magic, but Bolvar is taking off the kid gloves too. With a lightning-fast step, the veteran launches their ultimate clash. Lewin knows he has to get into close quarters, and without a heavy blade, his body feels insanely light. But the moment he penetrates the weapon's blind spot, Bolvar's wooden sword is already hovering right in front of his nose. Bolvar leaves absolutely no openings within his range, and trying to break the sword like he did against Doom Prime simply will not work this time. Master Knights do not just block raw strength, they effortlessly redirect it. To land a hit, our hero has to sync up and adapt to the veteran's rhythm. It is a solid plan, but Bolvar reads it instantly and moves to keep his distance. Every trick is anticipated by the master, but there is still one variable he cannot predict. Lewin conjures a blinding sphere of light and leaps. The resulting magical explosion is massive, sending a violent shockwave tearing through the entire training field. You and I both know Lewin's risky gamble paid off, as he now stands over a fallen Bolvar. The old knight laughs, admitting he fell for a simple flashbang. With that, the legendary knight admits defeat. Exhausted, Lewin apologizes for playing dirty, but the pop-up confirms his incredibly difficult system quest is finally complete. Not only did he succeed, but he also unlocked a broken new skill called Steel Breaker. Before he can even celebrate, a sudden slap on his shoulder startles him. Luina is totally fuming that he actually dared to knock down a legendary knight. Offering a hand to help Bolvar up, Lewin apologizes while thanking him for the amazing training. Sir Bolvar smiles happily, admitting that sparring together was an incredible experience. But with his brief vacation officially over, Lewin must prepare for his departure. Soon, our hero will have to leave his beloved hometown. Together with his father, Lewin watches a massive crew of workers sent by the Valtra family busy constructing the new trade route. This path will boost weapons, transport, and trade, bringing immense wealth to Ardell. Before leaving, Lewin hands his father a box containing 12,000 gold coins for the territory, telling him to use it well. His father feels hesitant to take such a massive sum, but Lewin insists he kept 400 gold for himself, begging him to accept it. His father admits feeling a bit embarrassed to rely on his own son, but the warm embrace they share only cements their deep bond. It was a seriously successful trip home. Irene and Lewin walk back together for a bit, but right as they are about to part ways, she drops a statement that leaves him completely dumbfounded, confirming she is dead serious. She promises to join him in hunting monsters after graduation, vowing to follow him until she can finally beat him. With that sweet promise kept, the two part ways with a smile. After a week of travel from Ardell, our hero finally reaches the eastern region. But he immediately walks into some serious trouble. A thug is aggressively holding a kid by his collar. Annoyed by the sight, Lewin pauses to watch. The bruised kid desperately begs for his sister's release, claiming to be a proud knight who will never back down unless she is freed. The thug just laughs in his face, mocking his threats. He explains the kid's family has unpaid debts, and he is going to collect by selling off the sister. Shocked and enraged, the injured boy leaps up, draws his blade, and charges. But the thug is completely unfazed, finding the kid's desperate attack absolutely hilarious. With a brutal punch to the face, the thug mocks him, asking if this is a joke. Stomping on the boy, he sneers, questioning the pathetic standards of Fuldren Squire knights. Grabbing his hair, the thug demands he repeat himself. But the kid fearlessly glares back, spitting that if he sells his sister, he will die. Lewin watches, utterly stunned by this brazen crime. The boy is clearly just an incredibly weak apprentice, but his eyes are special. It is the look of a true warrior who has something precious left to protect. Suddenly, a hand taps Lewin's shoulder, breaking his focus. A nearby townsperson warns him to stay out of it, whispering that these thugs are notoriously ruthless. Lewin understands, but he cannot stand the crowd just watching this injustice without stepping in. He tells the man they should all be deeply ashamed for letting this happen. Well, you and I are about to see if this weak kid has what it takes, as a furious bystander realizes our hero just ignored his warning to step in. All right, you and I are starting with this thug getting right in Lewin's face, demanding if he wants a beating too, But before he can even finish, our main character just flicks his forehead. That single flick sends the guy flying backward, completely dazed and seeing stars. The crowd goes dead, silent in pure shock, while another thug steps up, completely clueless about what just happened. But before that idiot can even get an answer, he gets the exact same treatment. Another powerful flick sends him soaring through the air, and the remaining thugs instantly start backing away. The beaten kid asks who he is. Our main character introduces himself, keeping his back turned at first before spinning around with a warm, reassuring smile to show he is a friendly ally. The boy introduces himself as Hans. He's struggling to protect his siblings from their deadbeat father's massive debts, and Lewin quickly learns they are being targeted by the notorious Angie Woodcutters gang. These absolute monsters are famous for tying up and executing people by the Angie trees whenever they lose their tempers. Even worse, their turf lies outside Fuldren, leaving the local guards totally helpless. These thugs are even more vile than Lewin expected, but he doesn't have much time to waste on them. Hans thanks him again and admits he actually knows who Lewin is, the famous Grand Tournament champion. Lewin confirms his identity, wondering if Hans heard that name from Sir Galter Pyrante. Hans is stunned. Lewin knows the man. He explains that Galter is a respected Fuldren knight who always praises Lewin as an incredibly skilled mage, even if Galter jokingly claims he is still stronger. The kid desperately wants to grow strong so he can become just as amazing as the captain. Honestly, Lewin thinks having Galter as a role model is fantastic, but Hans is still incredibly weak, and it's doubtful he has even graduated yet. He sadly admits he is the absolute worst student at the academy, constantly ridiculed by everyone for having completely hopeless, rotten skills. While everyone else looked down on him, the captain saw something special. He told Hans he had a rare talent, which keeps the boy motivated to train relentlessly every single day. This struggle hits close to home for Lewin, reminding him of how his mentors once believed in him. Sir Galter's trust keeps Hans's fire burning, and our hero reassures him that hard work never lies. Even with slow progress, persistence eventually brings miracles. But as Lewin takes a bite of their dinner, he suddenly realizes the sisters' cooking is, well, unique and definitely not in a delicious way. But watch closely, because a sudden, loud crash shatters their peaceful dinner as the gang returns, hunting for payback after what Lewin did earlier. With a brutal kick, a thug smashes the door open, but he's baffled to find only our main character calmly donning his gauntlets. Glaring, the man snarls, demanding to know who the hell he is. He says he was looking for him anyway and thanks Lewin for saving him the trip. Instantly, Lewin blasts him right out of the house like a comet, leaving the outer thugs completely paralyzed with shock. Stepping outside, our hero tells Hans to stay back and shield his sister because things are about to get messy. When the worried boy asks what Lewin will do, Lewin just grins. He calmly says he needs to pay for that unique dinner. The thugs scream that despite his strength, he is outnumbered 20-1, deciding to launch a coordinated, all-out attack together. But for Lewin, a group fight is perfect. Ever since his intense duels with Bolvar, he unlocked an incredible steel-shattering ability that completely destroys any blade the second it makes contact with his fist. Lewin disarms the invaders in seconds, leaving them staring in absolute horror at their broken weapons. Normally, our hero would show mercy, but seeing their wicked nature, he decides to teach them a lesson. One of the terrified thugs falls to his knees, begging for mercy and admitting they made a huge mistake. We both know they are only begging because they are completely helpless. But look over there, a total coward grabs Hans's sister, threatening to slit her throat if anyone takes a single step. The coward orders his surviving goons to get up and tie our hero up. Reassured by the hostage, the thugs move in. Lewin calmly asks if this pathetic guy is the actual boss, which he proudly confirms. He demands Lewin drop to his knees immediately. Worried, Lewin looks around for Hans, only to spot the young boy lying wounded and beaten on the dirty ground nearby. Lewin realizes he has to step in. But as the boy begins to stir, the vicious bandit tightens his grip on the girl, screaming at Hans to stay back or he will end her life. Pressing the blade against her neck, the thug warns Lewin that a single twitch will get her killed. Sweating under the immense pressure, Lewin curses his academy for never teaching him how to handle hostages. There is no time to cast illusion magic, but just as Lewin hesitates, a bright gleam catches his eye. Hans rises with pure courage, slashing his sword directly across the bandit's back. Somehow, the boss stays on his feet and whirls around in fury. But Hans's eyes suddenly flash as a mysterious, powerful energy begins surging through his entire body. In an instant, the bandit leader collapses to the ground. The brave young man then steps toward the remaining thugs, warning them to run if they do not want the same fate, sending them fleeing in absolute terror. His sister rushes over to check on him. With trembling hands and a shaky voice, Hans looks completely devastated, unable to process the fact that he just took a life. But Lewin gently places a reassuring hand on his shoulder, telling him it was necessary. He praises the boy, pointing out that the blue light around him is genuine sword mastery, proving he reached rank 4. Reaching rank 4 means a warrior is officially elite among knights. Even though Hans cannot control this power yet, it is an undeniable proof of his incredible potential. Filled with gratitude, Hans thanks Lewin for everything, admitting he never would have found his courage without him. Now he knows nobody will ever dare threaten his beloved sister again. With that situation resolved, Lewin heads back to the academy. After an incredibly long journey, he is finally back. Before leaving Ardell, he wanted his vacation to last forever, but now he is glad. He realizes just how much he actually missed this school. Walking down the hall, his friend Jason eagerly asks about his break. Lewin hesitates, not knowing where to start since so much went down. The chaos in Monzo, Ingrid's sudden visit, and that life-and-death clash with a werewolf are definitely things he should keep secret. So, Lewin simply tells his friend that he spent his time training. Jason laughs, joking that someone already so overpowered does not need more training. Lewin mentions practicing swordsmanship, causing his friend to tease him about working too hard instead of relaxing. He reminds him that swordsmanship night classes do not start until next semester anyway, but their chat is cut short when they run into Professor Heidel, looking incredibly serious. Lewin asks what is going on, and the professor silently gestures toward the courtyard. Looking down, Lewin notices a massive escort of royal knights guarding carriages decorated with a golden sunbird emblem. He immediately suspects who it is. They had exchanged letters before, but Lewin definitely did not expect him to arrive so suddenly. An announcer loudly demands the carriage be opened for the grand champion. As two flawlessly dressed, blonde-haired men step out with heavy, purposeful strides, everyone realizes the royal princes have officially arrived. The first is Prince Leon, who tells his brother to stay out of his business. The second is Prince Foster, who confidently fires back that Lewin will choose him no matter what his older brother does. Lewin respectfully greets the royal highnesses. Immediately, both princes begin showering him with endless compliments and extravagant gifts to win him over. But their real motives are totally obvious. Securing the champion's backing is their ticket to the throne. Let's see what happens next, because Lewin just offered to settle this with both of them together. All right, you and I are jumping into a story where the continent's weakest kingdom, Leon, is currently tearing itself apart from the inside out. Divided between monarchists and reformists, their constant infighting never ends. In this mess, most mages are just useless pawns used for political gain. So it makes total sense why they desperately sought out Lewin. But before their meeting even starts, the nobles begin bickering over seating arrangements. This exact kind of childish drama is why their country is sinking into absolute chaos. Acting like total spoiled brats, both princes demand to share a single chair. Lewin admits he is surprised by their sudden visit, but is glad they came since he has a major request. He boldly states he has zero intention of choosing a lord between them. The two royal brothers freeze in perfect unison. Tension fills the room, though they expected this, knowing even the legendary strategist Jagus rejected them. Foster immediately compares himself to the first emperor, bragging that Jagus initially refused him too before eventually giving in. Shifting the focus, Lewin reveals he has personal business to attend to back in his homeland of Ardell. This confirms he is staying in the kingdom after graduation, turning himself into a massive, unstoppable local force. This news instantly electrifies both princes. But since Ardell is facing a major crisis, Lewin politely points out that they surely understand his duty to protect his home. Their eyes widen as they realize how serious this is. Croster suddenly stands up, declaring that the kingdom's rising star should never be weighed down by trivial worries, pledging his absolute support. Not wanting to lose, Foster slams the table, promising to send endless funds, supplies, or whatever else Lewin wants. And just like that, the two royal brothers descend right back into a petty sibling brawl. But pay attention here, because Lewin has zero plans to choose either of them. Letting them constantly clash is way more beneficial. As they bicker, both promise to send mind-blowing graduation gifts just to outdo each other. Lewin just smoothly reminds them not to forget his little request. Thankfully, the princes accept his neutrality and leave. This is Lewin's cue to push his luck. He demands official approval for Ardell's current projects, plus full military backup the second their subjugation campaign kicks off. Lewin can practically feel his political influence growing by the second. But before taking off, Croster commands the attention of the entire room. Together, the princes loudly crown Duke Lewin Ardell as the royal family's newest protector, warning everyone to show absolute respect. It's a massive title. He is now the shield of royalty, meaning nobody alive would dare cross him. Despite this insane, unexpected promotion, Lewin is just glad things ended peacefully. Immediately, his classmates swarm around him, desperately throwing praise and cheap flattery his way. Thankfully, Jason swoops in to rescue him, yelling that they are going to make Lewin late for class. Nearby, a student mutters that massive drama is coming, since the Gary Hill family used to monopolize the protector title. His friend quickly shushes him as a menacing figure approaches. It is Mickle Gary Hill, wearing a furious expression, demanding to know exactly what they were whispering about. Lewin immediately senses the vibe turning sour. Mickle is already using his powerful family name to trash-talk others, arrogantly shouting that everyone will soon crawl beneath his family. Hearing that triggers a memory. That blonde punk got suspended for cheating with illegal elixirs during exams, barely dodging expulsion with a mere 30-day slap on the wrist. All of that was because the Gary Hill family holds massive sway in the magic world. Lewin steps up to the brat, mockingly stating that doesn't sound like what the princes wanted. Lewin greets him casually, but Mickle is literally grinding his teeth in raw anger. He sneers, asking if Lewin really thinks he won, warning him to wait and see who gets the last laugh. Jason pulls Lewin back, telling him to ignore the loser who is just jealous of his epic accomplishments. Lewin agrees, knowing such petty jealousy is not even worth his attention. Mickle's ruined reputation definitely dragged his family name through the mud. Lewin suspects this trash-tier noble is already planning a dirty scheme, especially since his opponents are the notoriously ruthless Gary Hill clan. Now, you and I both know that in these stories the main character's bad feelings are always spot on. And unfortunately, this time is no exception. His eyes widen in pure shock at who walks in. The rest of the class instantly senses the danger, and a freezing, heavy tension suffocates the entire room. Even Jason looks completely stunned by this sight. Smiling coldly, the new instructor standing at the front asks why everyone went quiet before smugly looking at Lewin. Lewin immediately recognizes the creepy newcomer. It is Jackal Gary Hill, a guy with a deeply untrustworthy vibe. Now, the Academy's second semester is starting, focusing entirely on practical combat training. They even bring back successful graduates to share real-world experiences with the students. These talks are supposed to be inspiring, but Lewin's intuition was dead on. This invited alumnus is none other than Mickle's arrogant older brother, Jackal Gary Hill. Jackal starts by bragging about the 14 court mages chosen last year, pointing out that 11 of them belong to his family. This veteran then drops his version of truth: you cannot achieve anything alone in this harsh world. He tells the weak students to band together, throw away their useless dreams, and face reality. He then takes a direct jab at our hero, sneering that sucking up to Lewin won't save them. With a smug smirk, he demands to know our protagonist's opinion. Jason instantly stands up to defend his friend, but Lewin calmly rises to his feet first. Even if 10 pieces of trash band together with passion, Lewin fires back, you do not get a masterpiece. You just get a gigantic pile of hot garbage. Jackal's face immediately twists in absolute rage. He snarls, but Lewin just plays completely innocent, acting totally clueless. The veteran sneers that his brother warned him about this unlucky kid, but Lewin quickly shoots him down. You must have missed the part where this unlucky guy absolutely crushed Mickle during the exams. A vein violently throbs on Jackal's forehead, as he barely holds back his explosive anger. One thing is certain: the toxic feud between Lewin and the Gary Hills is far from over. Jackal's arrival instantly ruined the Academy's peaceful vibe. Weak students, completely blinded by the family's immense influence, desperately beg to join them for easy success. Meanwhile, others loudly declare they will never support a bunch of cheaters. This division splits the entire student body into two warring camps. With the Gary Hills constantly trying to provoke Lewin, the campus air is practically suffocating with toxic tension. But soon, a golden opportunity arrives to shut down those cheaters once and for all. We find our hero calmly sharing tea with the powerful Dean Ignat. Lewin politely asks how the dean has been doing. As the top student representative, he is allowed in these private meetings. The dean then asks how his classes are going. Same as always. Lewin replies coolly, except for one annoying troublemaker spewing pure garbage. Dean Ignat already has a very strong feeling he knows exactly who Lewin is talking about. The dean also despises the corrupt Gary Hills, but their dirty political ties make it hard to get rid of them. Thankfully, they were not given classes that impact grading this year. Even so, those snakes are still trying to cause chaos. Lewin asks what kind of student Jackal was back then. Turns out, at only 23, he became the youngest chief mage. But behind that perfect mask lies a dangerous hunger for absolute control. Trust me, you and I are about to see just how far he will go in these upcoming special classes. Alright, you and I are about to watch Lewin scheme a way to completely undermine Jackal. Deep in thought, A crazy idea sparks, though he's not sure it'll even work. Then an even bolder move hits him. Why not just ask Jackal directly? Suddenly, the classroom door swings wide open, and the students gasp. Standing right there as their new teacher is Jackal Gary Hill himself, looking completely shocked. Playing the part of an innocent junior, Lewin speaks up, announcing he has a special request for Jackal. Jason tries his best to hold back a laugh, but instantly bursts out, pointing straight at Lewin. He yells that he knew Lewin would pull a stunt like this eventually. Lewin quickly cuts in, telling everyone not to misunderstand. It is not what it looks like, Lewin explains, pointing out that Jackal had rejected the dean's night class proposal. He adds that he came here personally to make his request. He asks Jackal to allow a joint class between students and graduates. These sessions are special, letting instructors join in alongside students on a totally even playing field to compete directly. The classroom erupts with excitement at the thought of witnessing Jackal's legendary skills in person. Best of all, it means Lewin and Jackal will finally face off on the exact same stage. Lewin has thrown down the gauntlet, and now the choice is up to his rival. Jackal sees absolutely no point in this class, but Lewin, expecting this, quickly throws his words back at him. Lewin asks if the speaker's whole job is to teach. Jackal is totally stunned by the sharp comeback. Lewin argues that this specific class is the best possible way to teach the new freshman. He reminds Jackal that he always preached about the Gary Hill team, so he shouldn't suddenly change his mind now. Unless, of course, there's another reason, and the big shot is actually just scared. With a dark smirk, Jackal sneers that despite winning the tournament, Lewin is still just an inexperienced kid. But the students start shouting, dying to see the speaker's real combat power with their own eyes. Jason slams his desk, demanding what Jackal is waiting for, calling it the perfect chance to utterly crush Lewin in front of everyone. Mikkel chimes in, warning Lewin he'll regret this because his brother is ridiculously strong. But because of his pride as a respected veteran, Jackal simply can't back down now. Now here is the part you and I need to watch closely. Jackal claims he is just trying not to outshine the class rep, but Lewin keeps pushing, eager to see his senior's legendary skills. Jackal grabs Lewin's hand, promising to give it his all. But Lewin decides to leak a fraction of his power right into that handshake, sending a massive shockwave of force straight through Jackal. With a calm smile, Lewin tells his senior he's counting on him. Meanwhile, rewind to 3 days earlier, when the Fulin Knights first arrived at the academy. Inside the dean's office, Lewin and Dean Ignite discuss the special joint class. Ignite explains he wanted to pair students with graduates, but almost everyone refused. But the dean realized that if Lewin as the student representative made the request himself, nobody could say no. Lewin smiles at the dean's clever scheme, while outside, students watch the legendary knights arrive. The powerful warriors approach the academy. Captain Golter Parente greets Lewin, mentioning that news of the young man's grand festival victory has already reached his ears. The captain heads off to speak with the dean, leaving Lewin to guide the students. Lewin formally introduces himself and asks to meet the knight's representative, but apparently the guy is too busy. Suddenly, Lewin notices a loud commotion behind the knights. It turns out Hans, a trainee knight, is being brutally bullied by his own peers. When Lewin steps in, the bullies recognize him immediately. Lewin demands to know what's going on, and Malt Gagan introduces himself as the Fuldra Knight's proud representative. He is the son of Vengros Gagan, commander of the Gold Knights and the only 7-star knight. Lewin couldn't care less and demands Maltiv answer his question first. Lewin demands to know what they are doing, and Maltiv sneers that Hans was not listening, so he is just personally training him. He mocks Lewin for caring about a total nobody. Lewin firmly states that Hans is his friend, making Maltiv burst into laughter. He sneers that the Ardell family is basically just commoners anyway, which explains why they get along so well. Now I know what you are thinking. Why is this guy so angry? Well, a voice calling for his brother interrupts them, and everything suddenly clicks for Lewin. Jackal, who is Malta's brother, approaches and asks what a lowly trainee is doing here. He sneers that birds of a feather flock together, making Lewin realize a clash with Maltiv was always destined to happen. Later, Captain Golter Parente orders everyone to line up. The joint class is finally starting, but before the lesson begins, they need to form 3-man teams. Each group must have 2 academy students and 1 knight. The obnoxious Gary Hill siblings complain about participating and immediately start plotting to form a group together to gain an easy advantage. Meanwhile, poor Hans feels completely left out, thinking nobody would ever want to team up with him, until Lewin walks over and asks him to join his squad. Even though Hans protests that he is far too weak, Lewin smiles and reminds him they are friends. This brings a genuine smile to Hans's face, right before Jason steps up to join their squad. The 3 introduce themselves and agree to drop all formalities. Lewin explains that their goal is not just high scores, keeping a sharp eye on their main target for the upcoming match. During a brief break after team formations, Lewin asks if Hans is doing all right after the earlier assault, suggesting he should head to the infirmary to get patched up. Hans refuses, worried that hanging out with him will ruin Lewin's reputation. But Lewin firmly shuts him down, repeating that they are already friends, so there is absolutely no need to worry about others. Lewin asks if Maltiv is the same guy Hans warned him about. Using his player's vision, Lewin scans Maltiv, revealing him as a highly skilled 4-star knight. But Lewin knows a secret. He remembers the massive blue aura that erupted around Hans's body earlier, showing he has unbelievable hidden potential. Though his current status shows only 3 stars, his room for growth is insane. Lewin decides it is time to deal with Maltiv, because Hans cannot keep taking these beatings forever. Lewin knows Hans can win, but Maltiv overhears and storms over. Furious, he orders Hans to step forward, but Hans refuses. The bully sneers that hanging around Lewin won't save him. Drawing his weapon, Maltiv asks if Hans has lost his mind from too many beatings. Hans begins to draw his own blade, but Lewin quickly tells him to hold back. Lewin whispers that they should wait for the perfect moment to completely humiliate this jerk. Today is not the day. But Maltiv loses his mind and charges straight at them with a drawn blade. Lewin steps up to block him, but before he can strike, a massive shadow blurs past, sending Maltiv flying backwards at terrifying speed. Stunned, Lewin instantly recognizes this legendary knight. It's Captain Golter Paranti, who just delivered a brutal kick to his own student. Looking down with disappointment, he demands to know what Maltiv is doing. The bully screams that Lewin started it, but the captain demands to know why he drew a sword against a fellow student. For this, his representative title is immediately revoked. Maltiv desperately yells that his powerful father will never let this slide. The captain knows this, but points out his father would actually pass out if he discovered his son drew a sword to hurt classmates. Lewin sees the sheer terror in Maltiv's eyes, but either way, our hero is officially on the captain's radar. Trust me, you are going to want to see what happens next. Alright, you and I are about to watch a massive joint training session kick off. First up, Galter teaches the class how to exploit a mage's casting time. Meanwhile, Professor Heil shows them how to predict a knight's movements and evade their range. Everyone is practicing hard, and the class is going smoothly. But Maltiv is absolutely furious, complaining to Jackal about having to train around trash like Lewin. The long-haired guy even suggests they just skip the session, but he sounds incredibly unsure of himself. Standing before a crowd with such high expectations is pure pressure. Hans suggests taking a quick break, and Jason happily agrees, but our main character, Lewin, claims he's barely even warmed up yet. Suddenly, someone approaches Lewin, asking if he has a moment to spare. It's none other than Sir Galter, and he has something he needs to confirm right now. He points out that Lewin's incredible swordsmanship couldn't possibly be self-taught. Realizing how sharp the captain is, Lewin braces himself as Galter asks for a favor, a personal duel with him. Feeling the tension, our hero is totally caught off guard. He points out that he's not even a knight yet, so he stands absolutely zero chance against the captain. But Galter smiles, explaining he doesn't expect him to win. He just wants Lewin to show the other students how it's done, since nobody here has better sword skills than him. Lewin knows this sudden spotlight is risky, but it's also a massive chance. If our main character pulls this off, he can completely establish his dominance over the entire class. Gripping his sword tightly, Lewin accepts the challenge, ready to learn from the best. Galter loves the attitude, and without warning, the captain charges, launching a lightning-fast attack straight at him. The watching students realize their instructor is dead serious, unleashing his absolute maximum speed. Lewin knows a clean hit from this would turn his bones to dust, but somehow, he pulls off a flawless block, shocking everyone, before the sheer force of Galter's strike sends him flying back. Galter can't believe what he just witnessed and demands to know who taught him. Curious, he even wonders aloud if it's a legendary name Lewin isn't allowed to share. Now pay attention here, Lewin hesitates, then boldly drops his master's real name. He reveals he was trained by Bolvar Peyton, leaving the entire crowd completely speechless. Not a single knight alive doesn't know Bolvar, the legendary lancer. Everything finally clicks for Galter. At the captain's request, Lewin explains exactly how he met the legendary warrior, but someone is totally calling bluff. Maltiv stomps forward with a scowling face, yelling that it's all a lie. He claims his father confirmed Bolvar Peyton is dead, and that Lewin has zero proof to back up his story. But our hero couldn't care less about proving himself to a bully. The redhead snaps back, boasting that even if it's true, it doesn't matter because his own father is still the strongest in the kingdom. Now it all makes sense. The strongest officially recognized knight is Maltiv's father. If Bolvar is alive, his father's rank is in serious jeopardy. That's what this bully is actually terrified of. But Lewin just shrugs, saying Bolvar couldn't care less about those pathetic, idiotic rankings. Those words hit Maltiv like a physical blow. Boiling with pure rage, he threatens to draw his weapon, demanding a duel with real, live blades right then and there. Maltiv is seeing red. But Galter snaps, telling him to cut the absolute drama. He looks at the boy and asks if he's really ready to fight Lewin. Once the redhead agrees, the captain schedules their match for tomorrow, Lewin's team versus Maltiv's. Morning comes quickly, and both teams gear up for the highly anticipated showdown. Jackal approaches our hero's team, asking if they're fully prepared. Lewin, though, gets instantly suspicious of this sudden, friendly chat. Jackal waves it off, telling him to just give it his all. But the exact second the starting signal sounds, Jackal lunges at our main character with blinding speed. You and I both know there is no way a normal student should be moving this fast. Lewin barely dodges, instantly activating his player's gaze to uncover the ugly truth. And there it is. The cheat brought 6 hidden artifacts into a school match. Meanwhile, a flashback reveals Vengrass and Commissioner Josh having a secret meeting the night before. Vengrass mentions his son, Ignat, was invited to give a special lecture. Commissioner Josh replies that he was actually the one who personally extended that invitation to the boy. Josh asks if the kid is doing okay. Vengrass sighs, admitting he's a constant headache, which is exactly why Sir Galter is currently disciplining him. But the commissioner's real target is Lewin. Vengrass heard the kid won the tournament and caught the Empire's attention. To Josh, a simple bumpkin from Ardell has no business being this successful. He wants him stopped before he grabs the prince's attention. Conveniently, both of their sons are in the exact group scheduled to fight the young representative. That's when Josh suggests giving Maltiv a powerful artifact, which completely shocks Vengrass. He can't believe the commissioner is openly proposing such a blatant cheat. But Josh argues it's a necessary evil to crush the brat, promising his own sons will use artifacts too. Then he mentions Bolvar Payton, leaving Vengrass even more speechless. Josh explains he heard rumors that Bolvar is alive and has been training Lewin personally. With Lewin favored by royalty and trained by a legend, both of their high positions are in grave danger. Terrified, Vengrass hands a powerful necklace to the commissioner, hoping for results. The commissioner flashes a wicked grin, claiming it is all for the good of the kingdom. Back in the arena, Lewin's opponent is smugly confident, effortlessly freezing Lewin's entire team. He sneers, asking why they were so confident with such pathetic skills. Jason and Hans are completely trapped alongside the rest of Lewin's squad. Our hero knew they would play dirty, but never expected such shameless, outright cheating. Maltiv taunts, telling Lewin to show his skills or get beaten to a pulp. Jason screams frantically for Lewin to dodge the incoming strike. Lewin stomps his foot, desperately straining to break free from his magical binds. Right before the sword connects, Lewin unleashes a burst of mana, leaping away just in time. But something feels off. Why does a wooden sword feel incredibly hard, like solid steel? The artifact Maltiv received is the Amulet of Fortitude, a simple necklace that makes wooden weapons incredibly sharp and durable. Maltiv yells that he won't miss this next strike. Since that sword is as hard as steel, Lewin uses a brand new skill. With just one devastating punch, he shatters the blade, leaving a stunned Maltiv completely open to a fist to the face. The sheer impact sends Maltiv flying back, landing right next to Jackal. His teammate is absolutely dumbfounded by our main character's insane display of raw power. He wonders if this is even real, because despite their cheating artifacts, our hero isn't even breaking a sweat. Equipping his gauntlet, Lewin warns that he wanted to go easy on them, but that is no longer an option. He is taking this seriously now, summoning the massive ogre, Kungan. Even Professor Hell and Galter are completely shocked by this insane turn of events. Jackal can't believe his eyes as the giant beast appears, sending students fleeing in terror. Lewin confronts his cheating opponent, mocking that even 6 artifacts weren't enough. And trust me, you and I are definitely ready to see what happens next. All right. You and I are about to watch a total beatdown as Lewin waves his arm, sending the ogre spirit to snatch away Maltiv's cheat necklaces, exposing his dirty secrets to the entire crowd. The students are completely stunned. Why would a senior need so many cheat items against a junior? In a panic, Jackal starts screaming that the Gary Hill family will make him pay. Lewin just sneers at them. First it was Michael, and now his older brother. Who is next? Maybe the head of the house, Lord Josh, Gary Hill himself? Maltiv absolutely loses it and charges, but Lewin casually stops him with a swift flick to the forehead, telling him to shut up and go lie down for a bit. Now pay attention here because Strang is seriously worried, asking Lewin if revealing the giant ogre to the shocked dean was smart. But honestly, it is not like Lewin could hide him forever. Anyway, what is done is done. Jackal is totally knocked out, and Mick fainted out of pure fear after seeing the ogre. The winner is already decided. Even Golter is in shock, but right as he starts to announce Lewin's victory, Hans interrupts him. Holding two swords, he yells that this duel is not over yet. He claims Maltiv only broke his sword and can just use another one, tossing him a blade. Furious and confused, Maltiv asks if this dirty commoner has gone completely insane.